Okay, what's good, everybody? How's everyone doing today? Um, wasn't supposed to do a stream today, but hey, Mass Effect news has dropped. It is N7, so not surprised. Let me just double check to make sure my mic is working perfectly. So, as some of you have seen, we have some news in relation to the Mass Effect TV show. This is all new to me. I'm just getting the notes together because, one of the guys messaged me like, yo, Mass Effect is the TV show is happening. So I'm just reading up on it just the same way as you guys. But yeah, let's go to the article. Let me try to put this on the screen for everyone to see. Variety. There it is. Okay, I don't know if you guys can actually see that, but I'll read it out anyways. So, right, a Mass Effect TV series is officially in development at Amazon MGM Studios. Variety has learned exclusively. Daniel Casey is set to write and executive produce the adaptation. Karim Zarik will executive produce under his Cedar Tree Productions banner, with Ari Arad and EA's Michael Gamble also executive producing. Cedar Tree is currently under an overall deal at Amazon MGM Studios. Exact plot details are being kept under wraps, and that's kind of it, to be honest. There isn't much to know, but what we can do is we can look at who these individuals are. So, for example, who is Daniel Casey? Who is Ari Arad? And who is Karim Zarik? So, I think first and foremost, we should probably go to Daniel Casey. And I'm going to put him up on the screen as well, just there. So this is Daniel Casey. He's a screenwriter. And born in 1981, quite young, he's an American screenwriter best known as a writer of the 2018 film Kin and 2021 installment of Fast and Furious franchise F9. So I'm going to zoom in just so you guys could better see this as well, so we can read it all together. So I don't know what Kin is. Don't know if it's a good movie. I'm going to put up on screen as well so we can see. So Kin is a 2018 science fiction action film. So already that's kind of good, right? That means he has some foundation in science fiction. This is not some random guy who's worked on fantasy novels or fantasy stories and is not making a transition into sci-fi. However, what's really important here is just, can you write a cohesive story that makes sense from start to finish? So let's kind of look into Kin to kind of have a idea of what he can do. Kin is a science, so don't really care about all that stuff. What's the Metacritic? Critical response. On the review aggregate website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 35%. That is garbage. That is really, really bad. But the audience polled at a B plus or an A plus, so that's not too bad. But the problem is, I don't know if this, because the director could be crap, right? The director could be terrible. However, we don't know if the writing was actually good and the director messed up. So just based on this, we can't really say much. I'm going to watch this movie probably. I'm going to try to find it and see if the story makes sense, see if the everything syncs up perfectly. But let's go back to Daniel Casey's profile page. For anyone just joining into the stream, Daniel Casey, he's the one writing the Mass Effect TV show. So I'm trying to analyze and find out if he's actually good. Gatos, how you doing, brother? Gatos was supposed to be on, but he's a little bit busy. Maybe next time, he'll come in and he'll share his thoughts on the whole thing. Don't care about your early life, to be honest. Maybe some of these guys do, but we know your director. He went to film school. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so correct. Casey replaced Chris Morgan in writing the screenplay for the latest installment in the Fast and Furious F9. Now, this was good. F9. This, I think, was probably one of the best Fast and Furious ones. It was one that made sense. It was one I believe John Cena was part of. I'm sure that's green. There's John Cena there. I don't know if many of you guys have watched Five F9, but it was a good it was a good movie. Um, However, how does that transition to a TV show? I don't know if it does, because at least with F9, you already have established characters. You have characters that the fans love. You don't need to develop new individuals per se. Whereas in Mass Effect, you're gonna have to do all of that, right? So take that into consideration. Um, he has been selected to work on Sony's adaptation. Sorry, let me put this back up. He has been selected to work on Sony's adaptation of the comic Incognito. He has been attached to another comic book adaptation for the big screen from Brock Bakar, Kill or Be Killed. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is producing Casey's script. Okay, so it seems there's something here. He's not some fresh guy. Oh, seeing Bad Robots makes me slightly wary, says Gartos. Okay. Let me look into Bad Robots. Are you going to tell me something controversial about these guys? I haven't seen any flags here, to be honest. Nothing crazy. But we could look at his filmography, right? And he did The Passage in 2003. Directed, writer, produced, and editor. The Secrets of Fenville, The Death of Michael Smith, Dead Man's Hour, 10 Clover Lane, Kane, and F9. None of these movies gives me any, like, it doesn't instill me with confidence, to be honest. And Gato says he's not a fan of J.J. Abrams. Okay, fair enough. From a television perspective, Drone, Chosen, honestly, the him as a writer hasn't instilled me with confidence. I don't see anything that makes me particularly gravitate towards him. So there's nothing I can say I like. So this does nothing for me. In fact, probably fills me with more fear than anything else, to be honest. But I think we can go beyond him for a second, right, and say, who's going to be managing him? Because at the end of the day, like, he's just a writer. He's not the guy who's actually, like, directing or calling the shots. So let's go back to the article real quick and see who else we got here. Okay, so we're back. Karim Zrek will executive produce under Hisida Tree Productions banner with Ari Arad. Now, we can go to Karim and see exactly who he is, right? So, over here, to be honest, how worse than Halo show could be. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's optimism here. Halo show was quite bad, for sure, if you ask any of the fans. But I think this could be something good, especially because Karim Zirik has a history that I think we all might be, fond of. Karim Zirik is a former SVP of original programming and production at the now defunct Marvel Television. He was an executive producer on Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, The Punisher, Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, and Hailstorm. Now, I think most people would agree Daredevil is a pretty good show. That was well done. Jessica Jones was not a good show. In fact, I would argue Marvel did a great job with Netflix in ushering the superheroes into television. You might even argue they've done a better job than what Netflix has done, with their foray into television. I'm not a fan of Iron Fist. I'm not a fan of The Defenders. Well, Defenders was okay. The Punisher was really good. Runaways, don't really care. Cloak and Dagger, don't really care. But yeah, this right here, as Garto says himself, this is actually quite positive. I think this is really, really good. Because yeah, the writing is important, but how you execute that is also equally as important. So I think they have someone who's good here. Next up, we have a guy called Aviv Arad, and he's Israeli American studio executive and producer of film, television, and animation. So, just looking at some of his content, his feature films, he executive produced Blade, The X-Men, Blade 2, Spider-Man, The Hulk, X-Men 2. These individuals are very, very Marvel focused. They did a better job with Netflix and Alone minus Agents of Shield. Those were exactly. You're echoing the exact same thing I just said, which is we're exactly on the same page. Netflix did a really good job in ushering in Marvel TV shows, and Marvel has just kind of bundled that. They've made a mess of it, to be honest. It's a little bit all over the place. But going back to Arad, there's a lot of superhero takes here. Daredevil, Hulk, The Punisher, Spider-Man 2, Blade 2, Elektra, Man-Thing, Fantastic Four, X-Men The Last Stand, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man 3, Fantastic Four again, Bratz, The Killing Floor, Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, excuse me, Ghost Rider, The Amazing Spider-Man, rebooted, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Ghost in the Shell, that's good. Spider-Man Homecoming. So, it seems like he has connections with, the previous Marvel pre-Disney and after Disney, right? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, that's good as well. Venom, The Last Dance, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, Naruto in there. And it seems like he'll be involved in the Legend of Zelda film as well. From a TV show perspective as well, yep, he's a comic book fan, right, for sure. So this one fills me a lot more with optimism. As an executive producer, I'm happy with that. Oh, as a producer, just any involvement here makes sense, because one of the things I always say is, listen, when you think about Amazon's Fallout TV show, as many times people will tell you, hey, listen, the show did well because they followed what the fans wanted. That's not entirely true. The show did well because they had a lot of good people behind it, right? They had Josh Nolan behind it. And when you have good writers, good producers, good directors, you're never going to miss, because there's a fundamental difference between a bad adaptation and a bad movie / a good movie. You could be a bad adaptation of something. That doesn't mean you're a bad movie. So this fills me with optimism for sure. And that's Kareem. And who else did we... So I'm trying to find. I got a lot of tabs open, trying to do research on all these guys, just in time for the live stream. Okay, we spoke about Daniel Casey. Kareem Zarek, yeah. I mean, listen. So it looks like we have an executive producer who has history in Marvel. And we have another guy producing who has history in Marvel. And I think just this by itself kind of tells me there's going to be some kind of quality here. Would I have been happy if it was other individuals? Someone maybe closer to what we expect from HBO? Of course, 100%. But I can't say this is bad. This is not terrible in any way, shape, or form. Hey, Martu's here. Iron Fist had strong starts, in my opinion. I didn't finish it. There was something about that show that just turned me off, man. I can't really I can't pinpoint it, but there was something about it that just wasn't there. Did a better job on Netflix. To be honest, the Fallout TV show did well. Man, I need glasses so bad I can't even see this. Okay, to be honest, the Fallout TV show did well also because it stayed faithful to the original. I wasn't trying to be superior. I don't think you need to necessarily be superior or inferior. I'll give an example. Like, I believe Amazon has said 90 million people have watched. Is it 90 million people? I could double check that. But like, let's say 90 million people have watched Fallout. 90 million people didn't play Fallout 4, right? I remember even The Last of Us. A lot of my friends who didn't play the game came to me saying, "Oh, listen, yeah, that Last of Us TV show is really good." because all they cared about was the story. If the story is good, the adaptation part isn't as relevant. I'm not saying it can't, it doesn't help. It does help 100%. But in the same way, how, for example, if you were to watch Black Panther or any of the Marvel products, if you're a fan of the comics, you'll realize that they have changed the story a lot, especially in Black Panther. They changed the story a lot to kind of suit, you could say, the modern audience, because there's a lot of things that the way they kind of the comic books illustrated women wasn't particularly ideal, right? So as long as you wrote a cohesive story that everyone can mesh with, if you want to call it that, then I think you more or less be fine. Okay, let's go back to the main article. So Daniel Casey set to write and executive produce the adaptation. Casey's the only one who's a bit of a mystery to me. Karim Zarek, I like him. Ari Arad, I'm pretty sure I had him up as well. Ari Arad, yes, we spoke about him. Yeah, okay, so I've spoken about the three individuals who are extremely important to this project. If you were to ask me what my expectations from if I was happy, if I'm happier with everything I'm seeing right now, I would say it's still tame. These individuals have not, especially the writer, he hasn't really done. Daniel Casey, he hasn't really filled me with optimism, but everybody else seems to be good, on the same page. So that's a W right there. Now, exact plot details. Oh, sorry, let me not forget. Michael Gamble would also be executive producing. This would be similar to the way Neil Druckmann helped produce the Last of Us TV show as well. So this is good. When you have somebody involved with the production, this is always going to help. Now, is Gamble going to have a lot of say? I don't really think so. I think he's just there to probably just guide them and shepherd them to make sure that they don't do anything too crazy. But the power will probably remain with Amazon. They're not really, paying for the rights of this to have somebody who's not a TV producer start micromanaging them, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But it's good that someone's attached to the project for sure. Okay, so the next part is exact plot details are being kept under wraps. This is true. I would be shocked if they ever, talked about the details now, especially because. Hey, what's up, Ushers? Can you hear me? Okay, Ushers has some tech issue. We can't hear him.
Yo, you can hear me.
Okay, we can hear you. Yeah, we're just talking about the Mass Effect TV show that's officially now confirmed. No more rumors. This is happening, and I was going through the details on who is gonna be involved in the TV show. Your mic's a bit off. Hello. Hello. Okay, I'll just join when he's ready. Oh, Loke, what's up? Oh, I don't know. I'm not too sure if this is Loke, but what's up? How you doing? Young Savages, 3 seasons. That's all the show needs. 3 seasons. I don't know. I wouldn't mind them expanding on certain parts, because a lot of things happen in Mass Effect 2, right? And even when you think about Mass Effect 3, the closing of the Genophage, the Battle of Rannoch, all these are pivotal moments that I don't think you can justify all that in one season. Maybe you can, but is it not better to kind of separate them, right? Can you imagine a situation where the Genophage happens and that's such a pivotal moment in the Mass Effect universe, but then you end up moving straight onto a different pivotal moment, such as the Battle of Rannoch. That's gonna be something, and then you move on to the Reapers again. I don't know. You can do 3 seasons, to be honest. I think you're gonna have to expand it to something else. But then again, the question is, are we going to do focus on Shepard's story? Are we going to do Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3? Or are we doing prequels? This is a contested topic. I would say do 1, 2, and 3, or I would say do a prequel. I think you could do a prequel, and you could establish whole new characters and set the pretext for existing for the existing cast that we have, aka 1, 2, 3, and then you can then do that if you want. I'm completely cool with that. The question about people being maybe upset or offended that their Shepard won't be displayed or shown. Ushers, can you hear me? The signal's a bit bad. Hello.
There we go. Sorry, I was connected to my Bluetooth.
Okay, no worries. Yeah.
So I see there's a lot of people in the chat. Is that low? Is that Ham?
I'm not sure if it's Ham or Loke, because I know there's things going down in in Loke sometimes, so it could be Ham. But yeah, listen, man. I don't know if you heard the news. Mass Effect TV series has now been confirmed with Amazon, with the Fast and Furious 9 writer, Casey. I don't know. What are your initial thoughts? Get into the details.
So it's Ham. Sorry, I'm just going through the chat. What's up, guys? What's up, Ham? Shout out. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's interesting until you sort of get into the details, and you sort of have you looked into the rest of the production and who's involved?
Oh, I have. Yeah, I've been walking through with these guys. There's I'm not particularly excited with that way, but I'm also not in a state of I'm upset, right?
But okay, tell me what your thoughts are. I want to hear what you think. So you know who the executive producer is, right?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just respond back to Young Sandwiches. The season might need 3 seasons or 5 seasons. And I was mentioning to him that, listen, if we're sticking to the main trilogy, the main story, then I get why you say 3 seasons. However, there's so much that happens in Mass Effect that I don't think you can even do 3 seasons. I think it needs to be more than that, because Genophage question is so important, and that's a season closer right there. But then you also have the pivotal question of, does this unit have a soul? That's another important question. That Battle of Rannoch situation where you choose to wipe out the Corwins or not, that's a season ending episode as well. But then you also got the Reapers invading, right? You got the Destroy, you got Control, you got Synthesis. That is the closer. That is the ending. So so he's saying 5 seasons, and I would agree. Yeah, I think you can do that in 5 seasons for sure. With some of those questions closing up the season. I want to get into do we do CG aliens, or do we we try to keep it as realistic as possible, but I think we'll deal with that later on. Let's get into the individuals who will be overseeing the show. So Daniel Casey was the first person I looked up. I saw his most notable contribution was Fast and Furious 9. That's the one with John Cena, I believe. I'm gonna say I can't even remember really watching that.
Exactly.
And from a story, but see, I don't know if it was from a story perspective, right? Because the directing could be bad. However, I don't know if the story was bad. What I will say here is that doesn't tell us much, because the Fast and Furious story isn't really anything complicated. It's not really complex. And this guy is dealing with established characters that already have, established movie franchise that already has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. So there isn't really much to do there in terms of developing character connections. So it doesn't really tell me anything. It doesn't tell anyone anything about how can you write a story? How can you make me fall in love with a Liara T'Soni as time goes on? How can you make me fall in love with a Geth? How can you tell me different races' background, their history, and make me feel some kind of connection to that, as a viewer? His involvement in Fast and Furious says absolutely nothing. However, I did go into his other profile. I'm putting up on the screen. he went to school. He went to Detroit. Creative studies. That's cool.
Not important. Let's look at his actual his filmography.
Yeah, let's look at his
That's
details.
what we want to see.
So, in 2003, he worked on a movie. He directed, wrote, and produced and edited a movie called The Passage. Now, the fact that he did all these four things is pretty impressive. However, I don't know anything about this movie. I don't know if this was a good movie. We can check its Metacritic.
I'm checking now. You can just go on there. I'll just check for you while you read through.
You don't need to check it. It's not good. It's not great at all. But listen,
no, it's not bad. I mean, it got 62% Metacritic. That's
okay.
decent.
That's not too bad. But keep in mind,
That's-
this was also in the past. This was 2003, so he's young, right? He's young.
And
he's
it was
young.
on Disney Plus, by the way. So he's done a streaming sort of he's worked on streaming before. So that's not bad. And it got a 7.2 IDBM. So that's not bad. I've never heard of this show. I don't know what it is, but it's on paper, it reviewed well. For a relatively unknown show, it reviewed very well. 7.2 IDBM.
And a young guy, who's writing, directing for the first time. So that's not too bad. His next one was Secrets of Fenville.
Okay, let me check that one out.
Secrets of Fenville. Let's see what Secrets of Fenville did. I'm gonna go to the chat real quick. And say Gato says so. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, it's all good. Playing Velgard at the moment. Young Sanchez is playing Velgard at the moment. Game of the year for sure. Garto says, to be honest, I hope that Shepard is its main character. They should maybe focus on Anderson. And that we can 100% agree on. I'm not saying I don't want Shepard to be the main character. I'm a little bit more indifferent to this, but there's so much you can do with the Mass Effect universe from a prequel point of view that it makes so much sense to focus on that. But at the same time, focusing on Shepard isn't a bad thing. It might be more, it's going to be more controversial, but I wouldn't say it's a bad thing per se. Next up, sorry, go ahead, Ushers.
So, Secrets of Fanville, I can't find anything on Rotten Tomatoes, but again, it got a decent score from IDBM, 6.9. So far, your boy's got a very good batting average, and this was a long time ago. That was 2003.
Yeah,
is that the same thing? Is that correct? Is that the same?
Yeah, same year.
2003. Oh, geez, yeah. So it's quite a while back, dude. Like I was barely out of high school.
Yeah,
and you got like a 6.9, not bad. That's why that explains why it's not on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think Rotten Tomatoes was probably not rating everything at that time. They were not as active.
So he has some history. So far he's okay, right? At least from a execution point of view. I think the second one might be interesting. The Death of Michael Smith, 2006.
Let's see what we have here.
To go back to the chat, Young Sandwiches says, well, the way I see it is 90. Sorry, my screen's acting up again. He says 90% of the best shows of all time are average of 5 seasons. By that time, writers have used all their main ideas. Yeah, that is true. One of the things you get to see is that when writers or the executives, force the guys to keep going on, we have lower quality. So there's a show that's coming to mind where Lost is one show where at some point I felt, what are you doing, guys? Like, what's going on now? It just seems like we're just trying to keep this going as much as possible. And I think we did see some reviews where there were some confirmations that is what was happening.
So yeah, so Gathos is right in terms of J.J. Abrams. I saw Bad Robot as well being involved, and the problem with Bad Robot is that these guys have they've tainted so many sci-fi shows what is his name? Something Akila Goldsmith. The whole crew. It's Akila Goldsmith. It's the Batman guy who's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got J.J. Abrams. So they competent, good filmmakers in general that they have in these studios. But I just think they're very bankrupt. If you don't get the right people to write for them, those guys can make you a good film. They can make you a good, shiny looking thing. But you need the right writers working with them, which is why this guy is going to be so crucial. So I looked up The Death of Michael Smith, and it's a 7.2 on IDBM. So again, very good average.
Yeah, not too bad. Next one, he's a writer for this one. Now he's not executive producing anymore. Now he's writing The Dead Man's Hour.
Okay, we'll check that one out.
Okay.
Deadman's Hour.
Young Sandwiches says agreed. I hope it's treated more of an ensemble. Never seen Stargate before my time, Sally. I grew up with prequels. LOL.
Okay,
I,
this one is a little bit lower. Sorry, go ahead.
I've never watched Star. You know what? I watched Stargate when I was a kid, but I never really got into it. There's just something about it I could never jive with. Did you watch Stargate?
I love Star, like the movie or the series.
The series.
I liked the series. The series was cool. It's where your boy who plays Kratos. That's where I first saw him.
Yeah.
He plays a Gula Uld there. That they like the symbiote possessed guys who are like former Egyptians and whatnot. So he was the first time I saw him. I think it's Chris Judge. That's the first thing I saw him in before Def Jam Vendetta.
Mhm.
And yeah, even there he put on a powerful performance as Tiak, I believe. So I watched that. I think the first couple of seasons I was very young, but I was obsessed with the movie. The movie is still one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time. Not just because of Kurt Russell. I think Kurt Russell is the main guy, but the dude that played Ra, that dude was awesome. Like his performance was, and it was very minimal. That like there was not a lot of stuff that he did, but he was awesome. Like every scene is in, he owns it as Ra. Like you feel like he is a god. Yeah, so like I'm a huge fan of Stargate generally, but of the first season, the first series of the season in the movie.
Okay. I've never checked it out myself. It is one show that like I can't say it's bad. I just never bothered.
Have you watched the movie?
I don't think so, to be honest.
Dude, just do yourself a favor. It's pretty short. It's not like these 3-hour extravaganzas that they have then. Back then, a good blockbuster was like just over an hour.
Mhm.
So it's not going to take up your whole day. But please, just do yourself a favor. Go watch that and tell me what you think.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
You know who's skipping scenes here? And Young Sandwiches. He just come out and said, "Yo, like 10 Cloverfield Lane was a masterpiece."
It was good. I enjoyed it. That's the one where the girl is trapped in the basement, right?
I think so. Yeah. And he wrote that. I mean, he's uncredited, but it seems like he was a writer. Okay,
I was uncredited.
Maybe ghostwriting situation. Maybe something controversial happened. Maybe they try to cancel him. Found out some controversial tweets, whatever it is. But I think that's probably okay. You know what? I'm a little bit more optimistic now from a writing perspective, especially because the way Mass Effect is you already have the foundation. You know, Casey and Drew have already given you the platform. You just you have the world. You just have to make it make sense to us, the viewers. You have to make us care about these characters. So good job with the movie front. I'm just trying to wonder if any of these movies had really good, character development from a TV perspective. Because these are all movies; these are not TV shows. From a TV perspective, I don't think he has anything. Like from what I'm seeing, Deadheads. I don't know nothing about that.
That's a special thanks. That's like,
special thanks.
On the back. Yeah, but like the last two is like pretty horrible. Hey, that Kin is like one of his worst movies. Like in terms of ratings, he got like a 36 Rotten Tomatoes and 5.8 in terms of IDBM, and then of course Furious 9 also was like critically panned. Let me just check but I think those are two is going to be his lowest, which is his most recent. But let's see what he's got. F9. Yeah, so 5.2 again for IDBM and 59 for Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
That's the one with I think this is the one. No, I think they're bringing back Charlize Theron, but it's when they introduced. By this time, we're doing soap opera shit, so they introduced John Cena as Dom's brother.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I stopped. Luckily, I think the last one I saw was the one with Paul Walker. When Paul Walker drove up into the sunset, I also drove up into the sunset.
You're like, I'm done here. I'm taking my leave.
Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. But okay, I think that the writer is important. There's nothing here that makes me feel great, but there's nothing here that makes me is a huge flag. I mean, maybe these recent stuff is. I would have preferred if we had writers from, somebody with more established background in writing TV shows. But that's not too bad. We can go into who the other guys are, right?
That's what worries me the most.
Really? Okay, we'll get into the first guy is Kareem Zrick will executive produce. And for Kareem, what I have here is his products, his execution. So one thing I've noticed straight away is that like there's a lot of Marvel people from the past and pre-Disney and post-Disney that's attached to this. And Kareem Zrick, he was an executive producer on Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, The Punisher, Runaway, Cloak and Dagger, and Hailstorm. Pretty much all the Netflix TV shows.
And those were all like, aside from, I don't see Iron Fist today, which was, there's Iron Fist, which was the worst
Fist
one.
There as well, yeah.
Okay. But like out of those shows, I don't know about Hailstorm. Cloak and Dagger I was not really a fan, but I don't think it was a bad show. Runaways I didn't watch. But Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and The Defenders I watched. And they were pretty good. Very good TV.
And The Punisher?
Not memorable. That's the only problem. Not memorable TV except for Daredevil and The Punisher. Luke Cage was okay.
Luke Cage was okay. Yeah, Luke Cage was all right. You're right. You know what? Well, okay, here's one thing I like about, the Daredevil, Jessica Jones, The Punisher, and even Luke Cage. Theme-wise, it was mature. There was violence, there was nudity, there was sex. It was a very mature way. It was very, very mature take on Marvel. Something I don't think Marvel's ever gonna or ever really wanted to do. And in fact, I think the only reason why we have a mature Echo, a mature Daredevil coming up, and even like with Kingpin, is because of these guys. Because they showed Marvel, they're like, hey, listen, like this can work. People can like these mature themed Marvel TV shows. And obviously, with Deadpool 2 doing, Deadpool and Wolverine doing crazy numbers. I think we can see a mature Mass Effect. I'm hoping we do. I guess we can talk a little bit more about if Amazon is willing to kind of do that or not. I think they are. I think they know, like, listen, one of the key ingredients for Game of Thrones success was that it was the mature themes, the backstabbing, being an asshole. So you could take a lot of Game of Thrones themes and put that into a Mass Effect TV show, and I think it will work really, really well. But so from an executive producing point of view, let me pull up his other screen. Here's another one as well. You have National Treasure, The Defenders, Daredevil, Legion.
All those shows scored very well. Like, look at the average there. Very good overall.
Yeah. You have more TV shows: MODOK, Hailstorm, Legion, Jessica Jones, Cloak and Dagger, The Gifted, The Punisher, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Runaways, The Defenders. Come on,
all the ones I don't know did poorly, like Runaways.
Yeah. And there's more. Okay, so he has experience, right? Jericho's. I thought I heard Jericho was good, so I think he has experience.
I heard also about Jericho, but I never watched it. But like, geez, like I think it's because of the 30 episodes. Like, who has time for that?
Yeah.
Looks good. Like, look, he's promising. It's the other guy that worries me.
The other guy, okay, okay. You mean Aviv Arad?
No, Ari Arad.
Oh,
Avi Arad is the Marvel guy that's done all the non-Spider-Man Marvel movies, like Madam Web. But I think they might be related. But you're looking for Ari Arad. I think they might be related. Go back. Go check the article again. Yes, Ari Arad. That's the guy. Go check the last thing that he did.
Man, I was thinking, like, I was like, oh, we got a very Marvel guy-centric individual right here.
Like, I know, where I know Avi Arad from? Avi Arad was, and like everybody knows him from his latest stuff, and the fact that, like, he sort of helped screw up a lot of the Spider-Man 3 he was involved in, and that everybody hated, and he sort of did all these non-Spider-Man movies after that. I know that dude from when I was growing up. He produced all the X-Men and all the X-Men 97 and Spider-Man, because the company that he had worked for at the time, the toy company he worked for at the time, bought Marvel. or
Mhm.
Marvel's rights to the property. So he was very instrumental in giving us all that early Marvel goodness. But eventually, he just started to just make really, really bad movie translations of Marvel properties.
Well, we can start off. So he was involved in the Punisher, 2004.
Who's
Uh,
this now?
Ari
Is it
Arad.
Ari? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The Punisher 2004. Man Thing, the Blade TV series. Never even heard of that. The Invincible
You
Iron
should check
Man.
that out. It's actually goodish.
Really?
It was on Sci-Fi, or was it Sci-Fi or FX? I think it's either on Sci-Fi or FX. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Tiamo, I love Stargate as well. I completely agree with you. It's awesome. It's one of the best sci-fis. But I think the first couple of seasons in the movie, like I think it kind of got like watered down after that.
Okay. Let me just read some of these messages. The issue with J.J. Abrams for me is his exceptional at setup for his projects, but he has no idea how to wrap things up. Would you agree,
Mm.
Oshus?
I mean, like everybody saw the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And everybody saw. I don't think that was him, but it was one of his contributors. What is that? Lost, and
Mhm.
how the whole thing like built. Like they talk about, they've got this. I don't know if you've heard about their their theory of how they make movies. They've got this mystery box approach. Like everything has to be a mystery box, where like
Mhm.
you sort of like tossing it around the room and seeing who can figure out what the mystery box is. The problem is by the time you figure out the mystery box, is that the mystery is not really that interesting. It's a freaking clown inside the inside the box or something ridiculous like that.
I've heard
But
about
that's their
this, yeah.
whole approach of making movies.
So they just need someone to kind of close things up. Okay. If they truly just respect the source material, they have an easy win on their hands. Oof. I don't entirely agree there. Nah, I don't actually agree with that. Because I think if you respect the source material, you're going to have happy fans always. However, those happy fans would not translate to the average viewer. The average viewer is going to be more a better catch than the average fan.
Yeah.
So the example I've given before is The Witcher, right? The Witcher came from the books, and then CD Projekt Red made the video game. If you ask any fan who read the books, the video games are completely different. They're very different from the books. Yes, they follow the same patterns, but they're very, very different. Especially because the Witcher games let you decide. They give you multiple choice questions, right? So you can go farther away from the actual books. But everybody who played the game didn't read the books, right? So you didn't actually need the fans of the books to transition to the video game. You just needed to make a good game that gave people good choices. And then when you transition to the TV series, again, I think Netflix said in the first 3 weeks or so, they had like 80 million viewers. 80 million people didn't buy The Witcher 3. And if you want to, back then, if you were to count all the Witcher 3 gamers, I think it was like around like maybe 30 million. Netflix, if The Witcher 3 pulls in 30 million viewers, it's cancelled. Netflix is not greenlighting that show again. 30 million viewers.
Like no, but at that time when but like when The Witcher came out, The Witcher 3 dude was already seeing at like almost 50 million in terms of like
was it
gamers.
around 30
like it was ridiculous. Like I think because when did the series come out? The series came out recently, right?
2017 was Witcher 3, I think.
Yeah, 20 by then, dude, the game had sold ridiculous amounts. I think you're looking at something like over 20 million though. I'm sure it was over 20 million.
Well, I think our last update was 50 million sales. And I think the project has sold 17 million altogether. So let's say like 2018, 19. Okay, maybe we can say 30 to 40.
The game came out in 2015, so it was probably sitting around 20 million. If you compare it, like for instance, the sort of pacing that Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk did like 13 million the first year. By the end of the third year, it was sitting at over 25 million to 30 million easily.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say we can estimate 40 million, right? Let's just try to be in that middle mark. Netflix isn't going to be too happy with that because I mean they got 90 million viewers in the first month, and every single body, like I remember, like I was preaching the Witcher 3 story. Watch the Witcher 3. Watch the Witcher 3, and these were all people who didn't play the game, and they all watched it and they all told me it was good. I actually didn't like it too much, but they all told me it was great. And I'll say the same thing with Fallout as well. Fallout has, I think Amazon confirmed 90 million viewers as well, and I think that franchise is up to like 40 million sold, 30 million to 40 million sold as well. Fallout 4.
But don't forget, like how they measure the views. Like it's very arbitrary. Like there's a lot of they normally measure like hours watched, and they look at things like, for instance, like the cumulative for the series. So they'll say something like, we're measuring hours watched for the entire series. So if it's got 3 seasons, they're gonna count all 3 of those seasons. That's how who's this
Netflix.
sound, not just Netflix but SoundScan. That's how they measure it. I think it's something to that
Okay.
effect.
Just a quick one. Young Sandwiches says 50 million units. The game has sold over 50 million as of 2023 March, making it one of the best-selling video games of all time. The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. Almost as my favorite. Mass Effect takes that crown, but no, you're right. 50 million is a pretty solid number. Not many studios can pull that. Like those are the Nintendo-ish like numbers. To be honest, I don't think Sony pulls those numbers. Yeah, thanks for the update. But yeah, let's get into the third. I mean, yeah, this is the third.
I just wanted to add something about like a show, if it's got a good premise or it's got like if they follow the source material. Like in that instance, if we use that logic, right, then Halo was literally a layup for Paramount. That should have been the easiest, like 10 out of 10. But like for some reason, I don't know why writers do this. They decided to do their own thing, like that nobody cared about, and include characters that were not in the series that we didn't care about, and change the story in ways that where there's a human working with the Covenant, and then there's a girl that we need to care about that we didn't know, that had nothing to do with that, and on top of that, they changed Master Chief's entire character. But in terms of on paper, that was a layup. That should have been the easiest thing to execute in the world.
Yeah. No. I think the Halo is more. The thing about Halo, I think it's actually an easier transition to a movie or even a TV show. It just feels very natural, feels very cinematic. It shouldn't have been that hard. Maybe the difficulty is trying to establish other key characters around Chief, but just the fact that Cortana is in his head, and you and Cortana, you could just write a story with him and Cortana talking. Like that is a dialogue you need, and both of those characters can grow together as the episodes go by. So you don't really need other human beings or anyone else. I don't know how they bundled. I don't know how they flopped. To be honest, that's it's probably what you said about just writers wanting to do more. They want to kind of input themselves into it. They want to say, no, I know what this audience really wants, and they don't. But the thing I'll say about Halo is, bad adaptation people can say, but you can also say it's a bad TV show. I think if they actually executed the TV show part and made it good, you would have had probably more viewers. But I think it's also Paramount as well, right?
Yeah, like I'm just like the problem with me is like and it's not the problem with the show, is that I'm the kind of person where you piss me off. Like if I hate what you've done to something I don't like I love. I immediately just throw my toys out the court, and I hate everything that you do. Like, I hate your family. I hate everyone.
Everyone.
I hate your friends. I hate your grandmother. Like, I really take it personally, and that's why I sort of checked out early in that series. Like, I think I watched the first 3 to 5 episodes, and I just started hating everything about it. Like, I was like, you guys did not have to do all this. You could have just followed the manual. Like, it's there, it's in the games.
Yeah, no, I get you. So in terms of what we've learned from the people involved in Mass Effect, I guess then we can move on to another question now, which is
wait, Ty. Go back to that page. Go back to Ari's page, bro. I want you to go straight up to what he's done recently. There we have it. That is the elephant in the room, my brother.
Oh, how did I miss that?
How did you miss that? And Uncharted. So he's working for Sony. So this is probably going to be a Sony related product, because I see he did Uncharted, which I didn't hate, but I was just so indifferent about it. I loved Ghost in the Shell, but I can't remember much about. I thought it was visually very pleasing, but the script needed work.
No,
Punisher
I'm gonna say the Borderlands is a real flag. Yeah, that's very recent as well.
It's this year, bro.
The only thing I'll say here is I'm not trying to even defend it. It's just it's a movie, so maybe put a TV series as something is better at. I think this is the part where I look at the team and I say, are there checks and balances here? Like for example, with Casey the writer, I'm not too crazy about him, but I'm really optimistic about the other writer, Kareem, for example. Right? I think he's probably the main guy who probably has the most experience. And Michael Gamble's going to be there as well. I don't know if that's going to mean anything much. You can just do that by name. But I would also say, I could see him telling them no, this is how the fans like this is how the fans like that. And I wouldn't be surprised as well if when it came to the decision, I mean, you can tell me your thoughts on this, but when it came to the decision on who gets the license for this, either Netflix, Amazon, or HBO,
I think Amazon is a better bet. Netflix would have been horrible. Give me aside from those Marvel shows, give me a Netflix adaptation from a comic book or a game that was good.
Cyberpunk, and Arcane.
No, not animated. This is live action, right? We're talking live action here.
Live action.
This Mass Effect is going to be live action, right?
Yeah, there's none that comes to mind.
Because oh yes, and this is a question I think we just need to answer, Tai, before we're done, is if it is live action, what the freaking hell is going to be the budget if you're going to be for instance, because my fear is if it's live action, they're going to limit the amount of alien interactions because of the fact that almost everyone that's interesting in Mass Effect is an alien. So it's either you're not going to see a lot of aliens because of just how much it's going to cost to, for instance, animate Torians, who's the other one? Asari. Asari is easy. Asari, you can literally slap some prosthetic on a woman and then you can get away with it. But how do you freaking animate Torians? They're like birds, bro. And what's it, Krogan? Krogan are worse. And then Salarians as well. Those species are going to be difficult to create. You're going to have to either use CG or a lot of prosthetics.
Yeah, I'll get that to answer. I just want to touch on Young Sandwich's points. They want to leave their mark on something that's already perfect as is because they think they can do better. This is in relation to the writers. Yes, I would agree. That is what they're trying to do. Rings of Power, for example, they think they can write better than J.R.R. Tolkien. Laugh my ass off.
That was tragic. All the way tragic.
I still haven't seen that Rings of Power, the first or the second one. I've seen the memes, so we'll see. I'll check it out one of these days, and I'll see if I agree with you guys or not.
Can I tell you what the thing is with those shows, right? I always say this is the same thing I say, for instance, with games like Veilguard. If you remove the name of the franchise and then it was something else, people would have minded it. They would have said that's a decent fantasy show. Same with Rings of Power. If it didn't have if it was just Rings of Power and it was not Lord of the Rings, and it was just a generic story set in a different fantasy setting, people would have said, that was an interesting show. It was okay. But when you use that, and then it's Tolkien, it's Peter Jackson, everyone that's done it before you has been a masterclass of how to make films, how to write. So you need to sort of if you're willing to take on that responsibility, respect it. That's my only thing.
Yeah, I think most fans will agree with you on that one, to be honest. I'm sure Young Sandwiches, he says, too true. How can you say something so controversial yet so true? Yeah, you're taking the piss, man. It's gonna be a very expensive show. Yeah, I don't know how they will pull the aliens off. Yeah, I think what we could see here is the prosthetic stuff. You might have a situation where they'll go the George Lucas route, the original one, where they just kind of put the mask and all that kind of stuff. Well, I don't think CG is going to be a viable option. unless the technology gets somehow better. I think with the SREs, as you said, you can get away with that. That's kind of easy enough. The Quarians are going to be very easy very easy to deal with them. The Drell,
Yeah.
I think, can be easy
Quarians, I
enough.
think.
Anyone who looks human-like is easy enough if you just kind of add a few makeup here and there. As
That's
you
why I
said,
think they're gonna limit the Torians.
the Taurians, they're going to make them more humanized.
No, I think they're gonna limit their exposure. They'll have maybe one Torian character,
Mhm.
or two, like in the first Mass Effect, where they also very much. Well, I suppose no, I'm lying. Torians were everywhere in the Citadel. So, like, you know what my fear is? My fear is that they're going to use a setting in Mass Effect that does not have a lot of aliens to spare the budget. And the problem with Mass Effect is that the human characters are incredibly uninteresting, especially early on in the in the games. They became far more interesting later on, but early on, just having the human characters is just not an interesting Mass Effect experience.
Do you know this is where I'm always like, the writing is going to be important, right? Because as you said it right there, the human characters are not interesting. They could make the human characters interesting. This is where you have liberty to say, hey, listen, you guys did it this way, but we're gonna connect it better. It's kind of what I'm saying with even The Last of Us, the TV show. Whatever Neil Druckmann wanted to do, you can respect the original creation, and that's fine. But I would implore these guys, no, drop the original creation. Change how that season 2 or the Last of Us 2 is going to be like. Do not do that shit at the start. Do not do half a season as one character and then the other half as a different character. Do not do any of this nonsense. Just write a normal show, and I guarantee you, if you restructure Last of Us 2, people will not be as offended or as upset at what happened at the start and at the end. So just like Amazon, I would tell them the same thing right here. Make the characters more interesting, make the humans more interesting. For sure. But yeah, it's gonna be an expensive show. I just don't know.
I'm wondering what the budget is gonna be. But besides that, going back to your point about writing interesting characters, you know what would be a layup for them, the easiest thing, and you guys said this earlier on about Anderson's story. So Drew Karpyshyn wrote two novels. The other one was written by some weirdo, and it was horrible. I have both of them, those novels, and the one was focused on it was basically what's the main guy in the first games? Saren, right?
Yeah.
Saren. It was focused on Saren's backstory with Anderson. And that was brilliant. That was, like, in my opinion, as a Mass Effect fan, that was a 10 out of 10 story. And what I liked about it stripped a lot of the stuff that we're used to in Mass Effect down, because it was early on. Like, for instance, the use of biotics. Like, very few people had ever seen a biotic use biotics before. And that's one of the things that he sort of plays on, is like how strange some of these things are to human beings. And then that guy is very, very good at telling, like, science fiction stories or true. So if they do an Anderson story, I think that's going to be the best approach for them. And why I say that, because it works budget wise, right? Because they can do the first Contact Wars, which means that the humans, the experience is going to be focused on the Alliance and, like, being on Earth. So you get a lot of humans and human sets and whatever. So it's like Star Trek, basically. However, you're also going to have the Taurians, because there was the first guys that they sort of ran into. So you can focus on the building of the mystery, discovering the first Mass Effect gate. So what are they called?
Relays.
Discovering the first relay, running into the Taurians, and then that's building up to. You can have 3 seasons of that, and that saves you budget, because you only have to worry about one race up until they go to the Citadel and they become part of that species and whatever. You only have to focus on one race, which is the Taurians. So if you have, like, for instance, a CG / because you can even do animatronics with the Taurians. It depends how you want to approach it, but both approaches can be expensive. But it will still save you money in terms of, like, having to animate different types of aliens. And then, of course, when you bring the Asari in, maybe later on in those seasons, to sort of broker the peace and whatever, then of course that's just going to be easy prosthetics. So that, in my opinion, would be the easiest way. Don't start with, like, when we're already with Shepard and the galaxy is already integrated, because that's going to cost you a shit ton of money. Make it simple.
I think if you do it your way, it's not really a Mass Effect, or at least the way we know it. It's a very different premise. However,
Mhm.
I think that is really interesting. I think there's a lot you can do there, and as you said, from a budget perspective, it kind of just makes sense to be in a situation where we have these aliens that we've
Mm,
contacted for the first time, and we're fighting them. In fact,
mm.
like I don't, you could do time jumps, but I'm not really a fan of that. But I think you could
No,
have a
I hate
season
that.
with the first contact war where
Mm.
even like, for example, would you say that the first episode should be the contact, or should we have a
Yeah.
build up for like 3 episodes and then the fourth episode there's
No,
a
no, 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 no,
contact?
no. I always say, always fire off your best. Like your like if you go back to award-winning great shows like Breaking Bad, they always give you a sample of what you're going to get in the overall series. So your pilot has to have every sort, even if it's of course not show everything off, but everything that you're going to be presenting in the show has to be in your pilot. I don't mean just blow your whole load off in the middle in the beginning, but I'm saying give people a taste of this is what the action is going to be like. This is the sort of story and drama you can expect. This is the set pieces that we're going to have. This is the tension. You can build all that up in your pilot episode, and then when everybody's in, then you sort of flash those bits out. Because and how you do that is you go from all that sort of like one and all in one sort of mini movie, and then you say, okay, cool. So let's start with the drama. Let's flash the drama out. Let's flash the suspense out, and then of course it leads to the action. Like every single like great pilot episode does that. They always give you just enough of what you're going to be getting in the entire first season, and then that's what hooks you.
Yeah, I have no disagreement there. I think that could work as well. So first episode we get first contact, and then the whole season is building towards the closure. Are we finishing first contact in the first season, or are we pushing on towards the second season halfway through?
How many episodes though? Like how long do you think a first contact war story would last?
It could actually do a season, to be honest, if you pace it well. Um,
And then
it
what are
could,
we doing second season?
for second season, you're gonna have to do a time jump.
Yes, I agree. So sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like second season, you're gonna have to do a time jump because between first
Yeah.
contact and Mass Effect 1, there isn't really much going on.
No.
There is tension between X race and that race, but there's nothing really there. And I mean, unless you want to do like another time prequel or whatever, where you talk about like the Quarrens and what
Yeah.
happened, but I think that'll be kind of relegated towards actually the actual like meeting Tali, and then you learn about her people. And maybe you can kind of tell that through kind of flashbacks here and there. I don't really know if flashbacks is a good idea. You probably just better just have the character actually
No.
explain what happened.
So like this is my other thing. Don't have Shepard in this story, bro. Shepard cannot be part of the story. This cannot be Shepard's story because Shepard is the player. Like you might like what I would do is the same thing I said to about Master Chief is that don't have Master Chief be the focus of your series because people have a very personal relationship with their Master Chief. It's worse with Shepard because he's an RPG character. So what I would say is that mention Shepard and his contribution in the universe, but your characters have to be like ancillary to that. They can't be part of that. I actually, now that we're talking about this, I actually sat down back when Andromeda came out, and I actually thought of a few great ideas in terms of like how would you do like a first contact war pre Citadel civilization story, and you know who the main characters were, and this is one character that a lot of people don't think about. So it would be Anderson, right, part of the Alliance. It would be Admiral, what's his name, Hackett. It would be who else? It would be some of the key generals from the Torian army that like even like the ambassador you can add there as well as the ambassador for the Asari.
And Ashley's great granddad or granddad, what's his name again? Ashley.
Yeah, well,
What's his surname?
I mean, like because of like it's all around Anderson, it can't be that old. It can't be that too. So it could be his grandfather or father. So it could be her grandfather.
No, sorry, General Williams, right? Because I think you would depends. Okay, if you're going to
Yes,
somehow
absolutely.
include Yeah, if you're gonna include like the Mass Effect game in the future, whatever it is, maybe season 3. Like,
Yeah.
if you ever do that, because Ashley Williams is a main figure in the game.
You can have
use
her.
to kind of contact them to kind of have a grandfather in the game,
Yes.
because he was the guy who surrendered, right? He was the one who made that decision. That's and
Yes.
he's the guy who made Ashley Williams become AKA a racist or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes,
So-
he was. So he could be part of the story with Anderson. However, even just as important, this is one thing that people forget. The character that you're trying to build up here, aside from Saren, is going to be, because Saren has to be on the other side of this. He is on the he's the main guy on the Torian side. So you've got like Anderson on this side, and you've got Saren already working for the Torians before. Like, this is where he's earning his stripes as like whatever he becomes, like him becoming a Spectre at the end of towards Mass Effect. However, the other character that you can really focus on and how he built his entire sort of like organization is Cerberus. You can focus on the young elusive man starting to have these ideas about humanity and their place in the universe, and the fact that aliens are more powerful than us and we need to be just as powerful so that we can have a relevant stake. You understand? So you have almost like he's like the xenophobic or like alien race sort of like, but his whole thing is like very thought out about like, I want humanity to be able to compete with the rest of these species. And then that's where he starts to get his ideas. So you can have him as maybe someone that starts working for the Alliance, and then he sort of branches out. So his story grows with Saren and Anderson's story in the background. He's like he's not related, or maybe once and twice meets them, but his story is like in the back, where he's starting this he's recruiting people from the Alliance, and he's starting this little psyop of his own.
How about this then? Would you say we could just make the elusive man the main protagonist in this story, and then see his how he becomes the elusive man as the seasons go by?
I would say do it like Fallout. Don't have one. He's like, who would he be like? He'd be like he would be like the Ghoul in Fallout.
In Fallout, okay.
So you have your main protagonists that are sort of like, which is going to be Saren, and it's going to be Anderson, that are sort of like at the forefront, sort of dealing with all the conflict. He's sort of like, he's there. His story ties everything together, but we know who he is. So it would be so interesting for us to understand how the elusive man became as powerful as he is, as just a human being.
I'm gonna I want to highlight Young Sandwich's point here, and this is something I've butted heads with a lot of Mass Effect fans over. When people say things like, "Oh, Shepard is my character, so we can't have Shepard in the game." So Young Sandwich says, so it would kind of be like writers creating their own personal Shepard. So he's saying that he doesn't know why Shepard can't be in the game, because you just create your own Shepard. And this is something I've echoed as well, that when we watch someone's Mass Effect playthrough, we recognize like that's that person's Shepard, and we accept it. There's many people out there who watches their favorite content creators, create their own Shepard. People who watch multiple different endings of different Shepards. So watching a TV show is basically you watching somebody else's Shepard, and that's just it. The creator and the writer have decided this is our Shepard, and this is what we're gonna do. And that doesn't take away anything from your gameplay or who your Shepard is. This is just someone else's Shepard. And I see the posts of people saying things like, "Oh, it will ruin the series for me." How? Explain to me how. Your game is your game.
It's not a matter of like, my problem is that you're more likely to ruin the character than actually improve on them. And Master Chief, case in point, Master Chief, or Master Cheeks, as they call him, from the Mass Effect series, from the Halo series, like taking an iconic character and trying to reinterpret them from people that have never either played the game or experienced the game is very dangerous, in my opinion, for your series, because you get one detail wrong that people are fixated on, and then that whole thing is going to be a shit show. So I say don't risk it. I say don't take. You can, if you think your writing is that good, that you'll make an interpretation of that character that people are going to be able to relate to. Because if it's lesser than one person's, or like one wrong interpretation of that, they could tank that character. All I'm saying is,
you see, I think that's the thing about RPG games, yeah. because there's so many different options that there's no interpretation that can be incorrect. Now the execution can be poor, but my
That's my
shepherd
problem.
decided to decided to save the quarries, right? And someone else's shepherd probably didn't, because that person's shepherd feels a particular way, but that's fine. There is so much variety in RPGs that I don't think anybody should be able to say, well, this card doesn't look like my shepherd, this card doesn't act like my shepherd. No, it's completely, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit at all. So I don't really follow that kind of sequence. Are there people going to be upset? Of course they are, but we can't be held ransom to the people who are very sensitive to these things, because at the end of the day, everyone's shepherd is in their save file and
Okay.
in their own playthrough. And I always
So
say this, like, for the franchise to grow and to improve, changes are always going to be made. There is no point in like 30 years time when it's a whole new generation. 30 years now, I'm like in my 60s or whatever, and they want to make a Mass Effect game, and I'm there screaming, crying, saying, no, it has to be like my shepherd, or no one gets anything. Like, at what point do we just take a step back and say, what, we need to kind of chill and relax and just let people do what they want to do? Because at the end of the day, always, your save file will always be in your Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and that's what we can pursue with that. I'll give one quick example. Smash Bros. Melee was a game that the fans loved, and create like a whole community. Nintendo brought out Smash Bros. Brawl, and the fans hated it. Well, not the casuals loved it, but the hardcore fans hated it because it was very different. After maybe 1 year or 2 years of trying to force themselves to play it, someone was like, hey, how about we just go back to the one we like? And that was it. They went back to the one they like, and Smash Bros. Brawl was, it was there for anyone who wanted to participate, but most people stuck to Smash Bros. Melee. Then when Nintendo brought out the Wii U version, some of them migrated, some of them kept on playing Melee, etc., etc., etc. If you look at the Smash Bros. The fighting scene right now, it's Smash Bros. Melee, the first one, the second one on the GameCube, and Smash Bros. Ultimate, the latest one. And I think that's perfectly fine, as long as you can still, play as your shepherd in your save file. Then it really shouldn't matter.
well, I'll give you an example where like some people that did this very smart, especially for an RPG, is Fallout. They went, and because of the fact that you don't have to, like, for me, there's no reason in a Mass Effect universe that is so vast to have a shepherd participate in the story. They did exactly the same thing with and that's why those guys are expert writers. And like, I wish that they were putting a team that's done stuff like Westworld on Mass Effect. Like, they made sure that they're giving you new vault dwellers that are not the ones that you played in the games. They created brand new, because they could have chosen any ones from the different vaults that you inhabit, like for instance the one that everybody remembers from New Vegas, etc. But they chose to go the direction of, like, you know what, we're going to create a new story, but you're still going to have all the characters in the world that people are used to. You're still going to have the ghouls, you're still going to have everything that people can recognize is still going to be there, but the story is going to be unique to the story. Writers can do that way you offend no one. There's no risk in doing that. Mention of Shepard can be there. I'm saying have Shepard in the story, but like for instance, the events that Shepards affect, like for instance, saving the Citadel. Yeah, do you hear about Shepard? Like, you don't have to mention this, the gender, the race, or who Shepard was, but we hear about this Commander Shepard. Yeah, Commander Shepard was here, blah blah blah. But he doesn't, or she doesn't have to be in the story. I think that's going to really, because I don't trust Hollywood writers to reinterpret gaming characters accurately. So rather have all the other characters that you can, like for instance, that are established, that people sort of understand, that are fixed. Have those characters in there participating in the story. Have lead characters maybe that you created for the story, or characters that like are new just for the series, that fit within the context. But I think to me it's not necessary for you to have Shepard as the center, front and center of the story.
I agree. No, I think the Mass Effect universe is rich. There's a lot of stories to be told that doesn't involve Shepard. Shepard is just kind of us being interjected into the story. But
100%.
there's so much like good things there. Like, listen, if it's something as simple as their Sari stepping into the finding the Citadel, even that's an interesting story, right? How the Krogan rebellions happened. the Ragnar Wars, the is it the Forgotten War, the war with the Get Wars, the first one.
Yeah, the Gets,
Um,
and then
th-
between the Get and the Turians. Sorry, not the Turians, is the Quarians.
there's so much interesting things to do here. You do not have to tell a Shepard story, and if you don't tell a Shepard story in that timeline, you could. There's other individuals who are just as important. And you could create a whole new individual who is just as important, doing their own things, and maybe that's whatever it is. So I'm interested in anything in Mass Effect, right? So I don't I don't really care whichever way you do it. And you're right. If we do tell Shepard's story, because we know it happens in a particular way, we'll be interested to see how it happens. And whereas if you tell a completely different story, we as fans don't have any expectations. So if you had to ask me where would I lean to, I would lean towards a prequel, or I'll lean towards a different person in the kind of universe if it's told well. I could see the attractiveness of Shepard. At the end of the day, he is the protagonist. He is she is someone that people have a close affiliation to. People might say, oh, that might be like a problem because of people might have different choices, whatever. I still don't think that's important. I don't think anyone who's a real big fan is gonna choose because they don't like the decisions. If the show is good, as long as you make a quality product, people tend to ignore the issues.
So I was gonna say, like, for me, like the first thing when you say Shepard, I'm picturing a female character. So that would be the first problem, is because they're probably gonna make him a dude, a generic sort of like make him looking like
2024. They're not making Shepard a dude. No way.
They're gonna make Shepard a dude. Like, I mean, I promise you. Like with
what
we have now, like I think there's no producer now looking at like everything, like, and some of the feedback that they've seen from everything, that's gonna say, well, we'll make this character a female. Like they're gonna make him the default like generic Shepard from. I would commend, and if I look at the guys working on it, that's what I think they will do.
Well, as well, I would say do that. In fact, I will go further and say every decision in the Mass Effect game, and BioWare has the data on this, that is the most popular decision, make that canon for your show. I think that just makes
sense. Horrible, dude, because like everyone's gonna choose the Marine. Like you're not gonna get a very interesting Shepard because most people play Shepard like on default. Like it's default.
But we're not talking about the guns. We're talking about decisions. Like I'm talking about pivotal moments. So, for example, most people chose to procure the genophage, right? So have your Shepard procure the genophage. Most people chose to with the Ragnar Wars. Most people chose.
Yeah, okay, yeah, those could work. Those definitely could work. I can see that working.
Yeah,
you know what would be a good idea?
The game, you they chose synthesis, and like 10% of the people was like, oh hell yes, that's my decision. When most people chose like destroy or control, like that would just be ridiculous. But once again, if it's their story, so I'm good with it.
So you know what would be awesome though, and I just don't think they have this level of creativity. What would be awesome, and this is why I think Shepard, like if you want to tell the Shepard story, do it in a movie. Do it in a trilogy, and that's going to be a movie. And be creative about what parts you tell. Like, what would be awesome, Tai, is if they actually shot the movie with both a male and a female Shepard. Think about that. And like the male Shepard, because this is another thing about Shepard, is that he's not a monolith. How are you going to portray him? Is he going to be Renegade or is he going to be Paragon? So I would say shoot 2 actors. Like I'm just gonna use an example here. Female Shepard is Scarlett Johansson. Male Shepard is Chris Evans. So have Chris Evans be Paragon Shepard. So you shoot exactly the same scenes, but just with Shepard doing all the Paragon parts as Chris Evans, and then you have Scarlett Johansson doing all the Renegade parts as female Shepard. To me, that's an interesting approach, but you can't do that in a series. But you could be able to do that in a movie and say, well, which one of the make a choice. And again, it's a BioWare experience, and you're saying to people, choose which one you want to go see. Same movie, different Shepards. You choose. You decide which one you want to be. It's not going to cost you significantly more because you can just use the same screens, the same exact amount of screens. It's just a matter of like, well, which one do you want to see? Which one do you want to see? The male shepherd version, or you want to see the female shepherd? I think to me, that is a very creative way to approach.
That would be an interesting way to approach it. In fact, I remember the Netflix show, the interactive TV show, Dungerbatch, whatever it is called, where you actually pick the decisions, kind of like an RPG game. If that didn't flop so hard, as hard as I think it flopped, then maybe Amazon might have actually even considered that. Now, in terms of the two character situation, listen, they could do that. I think they'll look at that from a budget perspective and say that's going to cost more money.
Not if you're going to do a series, it won't work. But if you're doing a movie, where like, for instance, because a movie, like, look, if you hire Scarlett Johansson and Chris, of course, you're not going to get those big as actors because it's going to balloon your budget. But if you got like the right type of female actor and male actor, and you're saying, no, we're not shooting two different movies, we're shooting exactly the same movie, but all you're doing is you're making use of your takes. So, like, I mean, like, how many times do they have to do retakes? I mean, you're not even going to have to reshoot this. You say, okay, cool, we're going to have a take where Chris Evans does this as the good guy. And then, he sort of like takes the out that's positive. And then you have Scarlett do the renegade, shot. And then every shot you shoot like that, like, okay, cool. So what did Renegade Shepherd do? The movies are going to be different at the end. You're going to get two different like endings based on, like, for instance, of course, the choices. But the only thing that you're really going to have to sort of alter is maybe the ending, like in terms of like what's the outcome at the end. But in terms of the budget to do that, it's going to cost you exactly the same. The only difference is going to be the fact that you're going to have an additional an actor playing the main character.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's a risk they'll want to take.
I don't think anyone would take that risk. That's my problem.
I think
it's very outdated. No one.
Say, listen, man, if you want to give us an extra 10 million to kind of cover our backs, yeah, we'll do it. Young Sandwiches agrees with you. Says Chris Evans would be good, but I don't think they'll get him. To be honest, I never thought about Chris Evans until now. Like, I think him with a buzz cut would actually be kind of interesting.
Captain America. That's like Shepard. Like, that's like Renegade.
Do you think Henry Cavill or Chris Evans? Like, who would you put forward?
Henry Cavill would love to play that role.
He would.
I think he would pull it off. Like,
do you know what? You know what? I don't know if I would want him to play that role.
I don't think I would either.
I think I don't know. Like, I didn't want him to play Witcher, and I don't know. I don't really, when I think about him, I don't think about Mass Effect. But I'll say this about him as well. I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm really not pleased with him leaving the production at all.
Which production?
The Witcher.
The Witcher. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, what should have happened there if organically, if the creatives were a bunch of nerds, and this is the problem I have with like a lot of Hollywood, is that it's not like, if I look at like Drew and them, and I look at Casey and them, and I look at those work environments, it's these nerds that grew up with all the lore and whatever, that they're not Hollywood guys. Like, they live those sort of experiences. They get excited about like redoing things from the book. They're not trying to reinterpret. They're trying to sort of translate it, like, to say, okay, how do we get this as accurately as possible onto this medium? And I think if you was working with a bunch of like other nerds that was just as passionate about The Witcher, it would have been perfect. It would have been probably gone on to be bigger than Game of Thrones in some aspects, because of like how they would have sort of like fed off someone who was so passionate about the source material. But to them, it was just an annoyance because they wanted to do their own shit and project their own whatever. I was like, okay, I get why he left, because he and this is the thing about him, like, say what you will, because they say that he's a very difficult actor to work with. He cares about a lot of the projects that he works on, especially if it's stuff like to do with video games and comics.
Yeah, I'll touch on that in a second. Homie says Emily Blunt for Shepherd, female Shepherd, and I'm on this. I'm looking at her pictures now, and I can see it, to be honest.
He did Edge. Look for her in Edge of Tomorrow.
You know what? I think that's
she's
really
got
good
the armor on. Oh, dude, like that was.
Oh, yeah.
Worked that role, bro.
Okay,
like that's
okay.
like she would definitely pull off Shepard.
Yeah, young sandwiches. Yeah, I never thought about her, but like, yeah, she's a good one as well. I think Scarlett Johansson. I never thought about her as well, but the whole red
She
thing.
would make a good redhead. Like
Yeah.
I've actually created versions of her on what's this on Mid Journey, like Scarlett Johansson.
hmm
Just look up like Scarlett Johansson Shepard. I'm sure like someone has also created ba, 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 ba. No, that's a horrible one. Go to the second one. Go to the second one just after the yeah. Okay, that's not also very clear. But
No,
the redhead Shepard, I think she could work very well.
no, I can see it. I can see it. She's a good actress as well, so I can see that one too as well.
Yeah, no, there's no role that she can't pull off. Like she's done like some really heavy material, and I think, alternatively, if like you're just gonna have a female Shepard, then, yeah, I suppose then you would make like a. I would still want like a Chris Evans because they work so well together. I would actually make Chris Evans Joker, because that's if you think about character wise, he's used to playing.
He would never accept that role.
He would like. I think he would take it because. Have you seen him in the Korean movie with the train? One of the best movies I've seen like ever.
The
like,
Korean
so
movie with the train, no.
well,
The reason why I'm saying he wouldn't
take
take it is because like he's Chris Evans as a side character, like Joker, as a comedic character. Nah, I don't see that at all.
Look at what he's playing now in Red. What is this movie with The Rock? Like this garbage movie that's coming out now, where he's like the Rock sidekick.
Man, he needs to pick movies clearly because he's on a very special level with Captain America.
He is, but
maybe he needs to get paid. I mean, it's just someone like him could be playing Shepard, right? So for you to get the psychic Joker, unless Joker becomes a,
but don't forget, Joker is. Well, Joker is not a side. You know that Joker is the second most important character after Shepard in the Mass Effect series. If you think about it,
how?
Like, first of all, if you go back to like even in the beginning of like the first Mass Effect, aside from the fact that like he's sort of like his role there is pretty minimal, but like after like in the beginning of Mass Effect 2, who's the character that you have to save last in the ship?
Was it that last?
Like, you know when your ship crashes and you're about to die as Shepard?
Joker? Yeah, Joker is the one who you tell
Joker is the guy that you have to save. Yeah. He's the last character that you have to take out of the Normandy. Who's the only guy left and the first guy recruited by Cerberus in the beginning of Mass Effect 2 after that whole incident, after the 2 years have passed? Joker. Who's the guy that saves the Normandy when you all leave and then you have to sort of like... like crawl through the vents and watch the collectors drag everybody off? It's Joker. Like, he's such an instrumental. It's not that he's not part of the squad. I think that's why people don't sort of like look at him that way. But in terms of like the characters, even if all your characters die, right? Let's say you kill all your characters in the suicide mission. Who's left to sort of like get you on board the ship? It's Joker. He's such a crucial character. He's so important to like so many plot points. And of course, you have the whole ED thing with him. But I really think, in my opinion, out of the characters that you can't play, he's probably the most, aside from Anderson, probably the most important character.
You make some good points, and I think Sandwiches agrees with you too. He said he keeps saying Joker, Joker, Joker. So you're right. I just don't know if that's I think that's just maybe a downgrade. Like, I don't know, him playing a comedic person, the side car. I don't think so. I'll say this, yeah. Emily Blunt as female Shepard I'm 100% down with that. I think that's a really good pick. So I'm sold on that. And Chris Evans as Shepard, I think I could actually be down with that too as well. I think he's Captain America. He needs to be a bit more gritty, but I think that'll work. But Chris Evans as Joker, nah, I think you need somebody who's just like a natural comic to do that. I don't think Chris, has that.
That's like, look, you've got a valid point. Like, a lot of people would never like buy into that, but like I feel that it's like Thor. It's like a lot of people after Chris Hemsworth did the first Thor movies, they thought he would be like this action guy that just does these serious action movies in his Shakespearean voice. And a lot of movies just flopped because the chemistry was just not there. And my problem with Chris Evans is he's got the same problem. Name me a Chris Evans movie outside the MCU.
What's that one called? Extraction? Is it the one on Netflix?
No, that's Chris Hemsworth. Chris Evans, Captain America. Name me a Captain America movie outside of Captain America.
Man, what was that one about? Like they went to Africa and stuff.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name of the movie.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here. Sure, this. Okay, Avengers, Captain America. Yeah. Red One is one that he's done. Pain Hustles.
No, that's the one with The Rock that's coming out now, where he's like Santa's assistant or some bullshit, and like that's gonna be a flop.
But you see, but I think here's the thing. Yeah, even with this movie, right? We could probably say that he's probably a main character, right? Because if you think about it, if you do a Mass Effect TV show with Shepard, who's gonna get screen time? Because there's so many casts, right? There's Liara, there's Jack, there's Miranda, and there's Joker. Is Joker as a character what people might want to see from an interesting point of view? Because if you think about it, Miranda, she's a clone, right? So she has her own personal story interest. Liara is an alien, so already she already has interest from a biological point of view and a story point of view. Even Jack was, she was, in the Tilton facility, she's biotics. That's interesting. Ashley is the daughter or the granddaughter of Williams, who was in the First Contact War, and Ashley is a bit of a racist, right? So that's interesting. Like I think characters like Jacob are not really that interesting. But you have all these other alien races that are very interesting, and then it's like, what does Joker bring to the table?
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Like, what does Joker bring to the table? What is Joker? Isn't he like the greatest pilot in the in the Alliance? He did that with like brittle bone disease. Isn't he like the character that Shepard always sort of talks to and confides, like when it's time to make the hard decisions, when they're facing like a great freaking collector ship, or they have to dodge and maneuver? Like, to me, all the essential moments, like I remember Joker so well, because you remember that moment. There's a moment in Mass. This is why, like, I
Joker
hate,
brings the heart.
I hate, like, he does. He brings the heart of the story. Absolute 100% Young Sandwich. Like, there's that moment, and Taya, you will know this as a Mass Effect fan. You'll remember this moment, and this is why I hate modern BioWare, because they don't know how to do these moments. You know that moment after, like, the whole thing, after you go down to the planet and one of your guys gets killed, and then you recruit Ashley, and then you watch Nihilus get killed, and then you guys are now heading to the Citadel for the first time. You just woke up from your Reaper dream or whatever. What is it? What are those guys called? The Protheans. You've just woken up from your Prothean vision. And then you guys are heading in, you're going in through the Mass Effect relay, and it's the first time in the game you go through a relay. And then the ship goes, and then like he's steering it in, and he's like talking you through, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go get you a good view of the Citadel, basically. And everybody's like looking at all the ships, and they're like admiring. That is like such a crowning like sci-fi moment. Like I remember that vividly. I was like, wow, this game is amazing. This is like playing Star Trek. It was so amazing. You remember that scene?
Yeah. Okay. I think you're making some point, and so is Young Sandwich here. I guess the thing is, who are the characters that are going to be prime and center, right? So we know it's going to, okay, let's say we're doing it this way. Yeah? So Shepard is number one, obviously he's the main character. Does Liara, Tali, and Joker, is it them three characters? Because it's cheaper to do, easier to do. And like, how does Garrus fit into all this? Because I guess my main concern would be there's so many different characters, right? So you could maybe put an episode here and there to kind of deal with maybe Ashley's problems. And I was just wondering, like, from a story perspective, I think Joker is a good foundation. You're right. He brings the heart. That's really interesting. But with someone like Joker, who you can say is like a comforts kind of person, right? Because you could go talk to Tali, talk about her problems, talk to Miranda, talk about her problems.
Yeah.
But Joker is just always the person you can just kind of go back to, and it just feels good.
But
I don't know if you need that feel good factor to be a prominent member.
But that's the key. Like, again, if I was writing the show, right, like my Shepherd would be the last thing I'm thinking about. You know what I would do? Like, let's say now we're moving away from the first contact war idea, right? I would tell the story around all of Shepard's companions before they met Shepard, right? So we would have a story about the Citadel, which is probably going to be the most expensive one because of the diversity in terms of aliens in the Citadel. And that story would be Garrus' story as a beat cop on the Citadel. And then, in fact, you can do an entire season of this. Is the thing, like, there's so many great ideas. You could do an entire season, or maybe each episode focuses on a character for the season. I don't know how you want to do this, but have a portion that just focuses on him as a beat cop and the challenges that he has to go through, the bureaucracy, all the things that when you met him as Shepard he was complaining about. Then you could do another episode just about Rex and being a mercenary, a Krogan mercenary, and what that is like, and that experience as a Krogan mercenary. Then, of course, you could do maybe a little lighter one that has more exploration and whatever, and archaeology with what's her name, Liara,
Liara.
going through these different, and then that will sort of fill in the gaps about the lore of the universe and all that, and tell you about the Protheans, and because she's exploring all these things and you're learning with her, you're not just in the nitty gritty thing, or sorry, nitty gritty like center of things like with the other two characters. Then you could tell something a little bit more alien and different, like with the fleet and the Quarians, and just before Tali goes off to her her pilgrimage. So you go through all these little stories of characters that we know from Mass Effect that we love, but you give us these pieces that have nothing to do with it, but everybody knows these characters, and but we want to know more. Nobody would ever not want to know more about any of those characters and how they ended up in those different situations before they met Shepard.
Do you know? I think okay, not a bad plan, but I wonder if we kind of get into that territory of The Last of Us 2, where we're trying to tell stories in a particular way that isn't really digestible to the average consumer. So you tell me the story with Liara, perfect, episode 1. Then we move on to a Krogan. It's like, oh, okay, the perfect episode 2. Then we move on to Tali, episode 3. Then it's kind of like, at what point are we really focusing on the main story, the main arc? So I think from a writing perspective, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Whereas if you were to keep it simple, and by simple I say, you pick all these characters who are interesting, but in the same way how in Game of Thrones, not every single character made an appearance because it just didn't make sense.
But you do exactly the same thing.
So you merge certain characters though? Would you say it would be better to merge, for example, Kaidan, right? What, like, would you say it's better to merge Kaidan with Ashley?
No, but I mean, like, Kaidan and Ashley don't really meet until you meet Shepard. So, like, my whole point is, like, you're telling the story of the universe, and then you could either have one person narrating the story to sort of like tie them together. It's not dissimilar to what they did with Fallout. Like Fallout, those characters all have like the story. Like, for instance, the first part of the story is just about that girl, and then after that, then we go to the guy that's like what they call him, the Brotherhood, the Knights, and whatever. And after that, actually, no, it starts with Walton Goggins' character. So it's easy to tell that. So, I mean, they've done it before, like they've done it with Fallout, and then at some point in time, of course, all these characters, maybe through your Shepard or whatever, then they sort of meet, or then they sort of come together, however you want to do that. But I'm just saying that there's a lot of potential there where you could like really zone in and tell the story. Like, nothing will get Mass Effect fans hooked immediately. Like the easiest 10 out of 10 take my money is Garrus being a beat cop on the Citadel, and you telling that like how you would tell like a cop series, like one of the best. You take some of the best elements from shows like what's this Miami Vice,
Miami Vice and NCI. Okay, so basically, like in that way, every episode is like a particular separate contained episode where we kind of sort out a problem.
Yes, like, and the problem is, I would say, actually, to your point, you're right. It might not appeal to the mainstream viewer, which is why I would say you want to do something like that, then you do it as an anthology. Yeah.
Well, Young Sandwiches, I think he agrees with that. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I think now that you've kind of phrased it
Absolutely.
like that, I think it kind of makes sense. Yeah, that could work. How about this addition to it? So let's say the first
Mm.
episode you deal with, Liara, whatever it is, that's her. That's that topic is done. Then the next episode you deal with, let's say, Garrus. But would you say in the
Yes.
third episode you can include Garrus in the
Yeah.
Krogan
Yes.
story? So you're
100%.
building with
Like,
the characters and you're kind of forming a team.
yes, yes, absolutely. So you could have them meet up, but it also has to, like, I'm very big on it, still has to line up with what people are familiar with in the game. Don't do things where, like, they met, like, when they like to do this with Batman, where he met Catwoman when he was like 9 and shit. Like that's silly. That doesn't make any sense. Make it believable that these two people had actually, I mean, Garrus in the game acknowledges that he has met Rex and he knows who Rex is by the time you sort of run into him there. Like, so you could have a situation where, like, he had run-ins with Rex, and of course with Liara, like, a lot of the other characters could have run into Liara, that are like, and it doesn't have to be the guys in your main squad, but it could be guys or people or characters within the main story. And then of course you can even have the Anderson slash Saren story as part of that.
You know what? Yeah, okay. I think you guys have kind of convinced me with that. Even with the Liara comments that you said there, like, yeah, they might have crossed paths sometime in the future. Maybe it could be maybe even change the origin a little bit. I'm not too sure. Maybe some people are like that,
Yes.
but like you could do something like, oh, Liara worked with Tali in the past, and then Shepard needs to do something. It's like, oh, I have this, connector.
Yeah.
She's a quarrying, and we can go meet up with her. And then see Liara and Tali are not really close friends. They just kind of exchange a few words, and then Shepard then gets introduced that way, and Liara's in that scene as well. So you're still building Liara's story arc. In this, yeah, you know what? I think you guys have kind of convinced me of that now. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's
But, like,
actually
that's a very
I actually think
complicated, like,
I would actually say that's actually the best way to approach it. I think that's a really really good idea because you get a
but
lot
you
of
need
characters
very
in.
good writers to do that. Like, you need very, very
Oh, I don't even think you
like,
need to be a good writer. I think you need good writers. You need a lot of
yeah,
people who like you need somebody who's an overseer who's connecting everything together really well, and everybody needs to be on the same page. Like whatever you write, I know what you're writing, and I'm writing like
yeah.
the follow-up episode, and you know what I'm writing. Like there needs to be that connective tissue that makes everything
Yes,
work well.
100%. And you know who else you could, like, put in there? That would be great. And you could also do things like, and again, this could be for the second season now, like, maybe, because again, like, I'm so protective of the
You understand
Shepherd
what you
thing.
says? Garrus was chasing Rex. That works.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
So again, you can even, like, for instance, let's say for the second season, you could then focus on things like after they split up, after, like, Shepherd. So the season ends with them meeting Shepherd, right? Or Shepherd bringing the team together, right? And starting on this journey, blah 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 blah. And then on the second season, you could, like, literally then say, okay, cool. So what happened after the 2 years? After, like, they disbanded, everyone went their separate ways. Then you start the story again. People know Rex, sorry, people know Garrus and who he is, but now he's an Omega. He's like this Avenger, this vengeful Avenger in Omega. And and now it's darker. It's like the Citadel, but it's 10 times worse. He can't be an officer now. He has to be literally like Batman, and he has to, like, take out all these freaking and fight against gangs, and it's got all that mystery and all that grit. And even there you could even introduce him, like, so you could have him run into, like, a Rex there for a mission or to trade or whatever it is. And then of course you have, like, such a brilliant character in Arya, who is, I think, a fascinating sort of, like, villain slash potential anti-hero. And then who else's story is, like, brilliant after Massive. And of course Tally's role has changed. Everyone's role has changed, and you could even, like, focus in on, like, the likes of like Rex back in, but yes, this is gonna be, that would be expensive. Like Rex back in his homeworld, sort of trying to repair and change things there. And of course then you sort of start to focus on Cerberus as well, Miranda, the elusive man, etc.
Yeah. No. I think it's interesting because I've never really thought about it from an anthology point of view, and I think you guys have done you guys have done a good job in convincing me. Anyway, like you've done such a good job in convincing me that I can't even think of it I can't think of them doing anything else. I'm like, yeah, like you want to do something else. It's like, what? Why? This is such clearly the better way to do it. right? There's a lot that can be done here, and I'm even thinking about situations of Shepard having to um, potentially take out the humans to because that they're part of like Cerberus or whatever,
Yeah.
and that
Remember those
that's a
missions from Mass
decision.
Effect 1
Yeah,
where
like
you didn't
that's an
know, like
important
Cerberus
decision.
wasn't a thing yet, but it was like this Black Ops Alliance military unit that broke off from the Alliance. That would be interesting missions for Shepard.
Yeah, no, they can do this. It's I'm a lot more excited. It's funny because I'm seeing all these. This is the writer, this is the executive producer. I think this discussion we've had is a lot more interesting than what I've just read. To be honest, it's a lot more. Um,
Let's
it
hope
kind of,
they're listening to this podcast.
yeah. I might just message Gamble myself like, hey, you don't know me, maybe you do, but well, I got some news for you guys. Like do it
I
this
got a
way.
show for you.
Like you guys are gonna make this rock. Um, but I'm excited. There hasn't been any other N7 news, which is kind of surprising. Normally they
Yeah.
would have dropped some kind of tidbit.
Oh,
They might do it a little
if
bit.
you're
later.
do you play Destiny and all those games? I saw a message. They sent a message out from, if you go to BioWare's Twitter,
Mhm.
they've released content from other games. But Destiny is one of them. I can't remember the other one.
Oh, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky.
Yes, No Man's Sky. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. No Man's Sky. So they've released content there. They released a video on their Instagram of the guy that plays Lucanus in Veilguard, dressed in that that thing that Mike Gamble has
Mhm.
on his as his icon, like in that garb, in that suit, like the character that he has there, the ship, the N7 jacket thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
In his profile picture, so they have that guy dressed in that, like sort of just walking, doing exactly that intro they sort of hinted this last year.
Yeah. No, this is good. But I mean, like, you remember last year when they did like the proper, tidbits and
Yeah,
radio
so
stuff?
exactly, so they've got him reacting that thing.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, they did say like, "Hey, listen, due to Veilguard releasing, we're not gonna be as heavy this year." But I mean, I honestly, I don't know why. I don't know why Veilguard would hinder it. Like, don't you have a separate creative team that deals with these things? So I'm a bit surprised there. But yeah, young sandwiches. Yeah, you guys have figured it all out. All we just need to do is get Michael Gamble to listen,
Yeah,
and hopefully
you know,
he'll take us on board.
like I wonder, like Ty, like do they, like I would, if I was a creative, right? If I worked in Hollywood as a creative and I was dealing with IP, like it's like when you're making toys for kids, you have to sort of take the toys to kids and watch them play with them and look at their reactions, and based on that, you sort of see what works and what doesn't. I wonder if they actually sit down, and I don't think they do this. Sit down with, like, not the test screenings, but because by the time you do test screenings, you've already made the product. You've already spent a budget on certain things that you probably shouldn't have doubled down on at some point. I wonder if they just sit with like a bunch of not, and again, I wouldn't say, I would say have a hardcore fan, have a casual fan, have a person that just plays games, and have a person that just watches movies. And then you just sit with like those type of demographic, and you present a basic idea of what you're trying to do and have them spitball and say, okay, cool, yeah, no, I can see where you're going with that. What's your thoughts on this? Where do you? I wonder if they ever do things like that.
I know I read something about like was it something to do with Disney, like some kind of community situation where they wanted fans to be more involved, so they wanted to like run like some TV
I
shows
remember
to do
that.
that. I don't like that at all. I think it's good from a okay, let's get some fans and ask them some, like what they think about certain things. I think fans can be incredibly toxic. So a lot of fans like to think themselves as writers, and they'll be like, "Oh no, I know how to make things better." But then when it comes to the writing, they'll completely drop the ball, 100%. Because they're not writers. Like, it's easy to like for me even as well. I could take a Mass Effect story, and Casey, Drew, like they've written this story, they've created this world, and I can amend certain things to make it a better story. But if I have to create an original new story, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. It's very easy to kind of critique and amend people's already established stories. Just the same way how I'm sure somebody can make Lord of the Rings story slightly more sexy, slightly more better, because that's that
Yeah.
foundation to pull from. My issue with the fan stuff is you need to kind of pick them very carefully. The last thing I want to see is some Star Wars fan being like, "I told them to do this and they didn't do it." They, and
But
start
that's my thing,
bashing
though.
it.
So my thing is like, don't tell them what you're doing. Then don't tell them you're making a style. So you know what? You were picked because you're a fan of science fiction, and this is just to sort of like spitball. Like, what do you think of this? You're not giving us ideas, but we've got a couple of ideas as a sci-fi fan. Like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about, so that you can just get the insights in terms of like, and again, as a creative team, the only reason I'm saying this, that you do this, is that if you're trying to adapt one medium to another, because the problem is that when they get it right, it's a fallout. When they get it wrong, it's Borderlands. You see what I'm saying in terms of the disparity? I think having some input, and again, they're not telling you what to make and not what to make, and you're not asking them for writing decisions. You're presenting concepts to them, and you're seeing how they're reacting to those concepts, because they're a fan of what you're trying to make, but they don't know that you're just making that. They just know that you picked them because they like the genre.
Okay, that could work. However, I think for specific fans, it might not work out too well, right? Because if it's kind of like how you said there, like, listen, if Dragon Age Veilguard was just Veilguard, people okay, it's all right, it is what it is. But it's because it's Dragon Age Veilguard, now it's like, nah, this is disgusting. Like, this is not what I wanted. So I think you might need to be a bit more specific when it comes to like certain fans, right? Because some sci-fi elements are pretty good for whatever Star Wars, are pretty good for Pandora Star, whatever sci-fi show you want to put in. But as soon as you interject into Star Wars, it might be a problem. Like I was speaking to a fan, and he was saying how, like, let's not forget that Star Wars is good versus evil. So for him, Acolyte's biggest crime was trying to make the Jedi look, suspicious. But in a different story, that's an amazing concept. Of course, let's make the good guys a bit, suspicious. But however, for Star Wars, that does not work for him. I think it does work. So I would have been the fan who would be like, hell yeah, let's do this. But for him, it's like, no, disgusting.
So, like, here's another idea. So let's not use fans. Why not get Drew Karpyshyn, Casey Hudson, all those writers, and create, well, not all of them, but like as many as you can in a room, and then say, listen, let's spitball. Let's like, not just Mike, because the problem with Mike Gamble is like he's the only guy left from that team. So it doesn't mean he's the best. It just means he's the only guy left. So my thing is, who put those things together. Who created and who was. Look at the credits from Mass Effect 1 and 2 and say, okay, get a couple of these writers and creatives that sort of like, and again, if you're going to get them, you're not going to get them all to sort of advise on the same shit. So like, for instance, the overall concept in the story, you're going to get Drew and Casey to sit with you and say, okay, guys, this is what we were thinking. You guys had this idea. So, because it's also just going to give you, exactly what to bounce off, what works and what doesn't. And where, like, for instance, because they've done a lot of this work for you already when they were doing their concept work. They'll instantly tell you, yeah, well, we tried to do that. And then the reason we didn't go that direction is because we discovered that this and this and this. Same with things like, for instance, the aliens and how they designed. Have a bunch of the guys that designed the original aliens and like the different races and whatever. Sit with that team and say, okay, cool. So we want to know a little bit more about the Asari's physiology, how they would move if they were human, actors portraying them, blah, blah, blah. I really think there's a lot of insights to be gained there. Like, I give you an example. If Amazon, for Rings of Power, and I heard that they tried this, and of course the deal fell through with Peter Jackson. If at least they'd retained some of the people that Peter Jackson used for the Lord of the Rings movies, we would have had a completely different product in terms of overall execution. Just bring them in. You don't have to hire them to do the thing. Bring them in to consult on these very important aspects of what you're trying to create.
I think with Rings of Power, I know they did. They managed to get some of the people, but the problem was they didn't get maybe all the right people, and I think what we have here is some writers, they think they can do better. So obviously Young Sandwich, and you highlighted the Henry Cavill situation where he was like, what are you doing to do it this way? I think they look at the these people and say, "Well, this is my job. I don't need you telling me what to do." So there needs to be maybe a lot more respect for the establishment, the people who actually create a product, and then we can, move forward. But I'll give an example of how sometimes the initial writer or whatever he's created just doesn't really mesh well. If you got David Jaffe to work on the new, like as an advisor for God of War 17, he's gonna tell you straight up, like, listen, get rid of all this fucking emotional stuff and this Atreus kid. Like, this is my creation. I'm telling you what Kratos is. And I could see that happening. And I could also see, Cory Barlog saying, no, but I want to create, like, I want to take this character and make him into something more. Because God of War, at least 2017, it's quite different, right, from the previous ones in terms of tone and style. And I remember there was one from GameSpot. I think when Jaffe mentioned something about, how he doesn't like the new God of War kind of style, someone from GameSpot actually called him out. So, like, we don't care what you think. Like, we think it's amazing. And everyone was in the conversation saying, like, he's the creator. Like, of course, his opinion is, relevant. So I do think that there's a conflict there. When it works out well and the product is great, nobody cares. Screw the original writer, whatever it is, right? Because even I heard even the Fallout writers, people who created the original Fallout game, they were like, yeah, what Bethesda's done isn't what we, we're doing, right? But nobody cares because Fallout 4 is amazing or Fallout 3 is great, right? So nobody cares about the original creators.
Oh, you mean the guys that made the original
Yeah,
Fallout?
they were like, I can't remember what it was. It was about capitalism.
Yeah,
and he was like, no, it's not. Like, who's telling you this bullshit? Like, they just changed the story into whatever they wanted it to be. So I think it's always going to depend on not really the original creator, but what we prefer or what we like. Like I said something about Black Panther. I don't know if you disagree, but the story about the Dora Milaje, and the women wanting T'Challa, like kind of like he's almost like concubine of women, that was changed because it doesn't matter if the original creator was like, no, that's the way it should be. He's like, no, we're not gonna do that, and no, we're not gonna have.
Wait, like, what was this from? Like, the problem with that is that, like, there were so many iterations of Black Panther. Like, I don't remember who wrote that run.
Wasn't that was the original run, right? I mean, like, I think the creation was that. It was like they were all an army of women.
In the 70s, though, eh? Like, would they've done like rape? I suppose, yeah.
I mean, listen, you say 70s, which is true, but we can't deny that the world has changed a lot in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
From a political point of view, like I remember, like, so people telling me, like, yo, we went from, Bush to a black president and Barack Obama, like that, and then we went to Trump, and then back to old school Biden, like, and then we went to, obviously the LGBTQ stuff. Like, even when you think about like things like the woke movement, like, when did that start? That was a huge shift in how we think about things. Like, when you think about how much diverse the TV shows have been, like, that was another huge shift. That's a very recent thing. So I think we're changing very fast from a very cultural point of view, and I think that has to do with the fact that obviously, it's media is everywhere. We consume everything, and so the backlash is also as instantaneous.
No, I hear you, but I do feel that, like, it's very important for me, like, in whatever you do, because Todd Howard was very instrumental in that show in terms of just, like, the overall. I just don't think Mike Gamble is the best guy you need to have, because Mike Gamble has overseen some dog shit in terms of, like, Mass Effect, even in the games, like, interpretations. Like, I hate Andromeda, and he was the executive producer there, or the producer on that project. I don't remember who directed it. But, like, I would, like, if there's two people that you need as part of this project and you can sacrifice everyone else, you have to have Drew Karpyshyn in there, and you have to have Casey Hudson. It's the same thing if I was doing a God of War show. I don't care. Like, again, it depends. What are you doing? If you're doing God of War 2018, then you're going to have Cory Barlog, because Cory Barlog has produced more God of War games than David Jaffe has. If you're saying you want to do an origin story of, like, God of War, when you are still in, like, a Greek in the army and doing all that there, and then you need David Jaffe to come in there and consult on some of those things. Having people who work on projects because there's so many things like it's like even with and I don't know how they got this right, but I know they had he said that they did call him and they did what was that, the clown movie, the clown series that David Jaffe made, what's it called, Twisted Metal.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a lot of things right for a game that doesn't really have a cohesive story, even in the like and throughout its entire iteration. But like, and he didn't have a lot to sort of contribute to that. You know, they invited him for a couple of things and whatnot. But he said generally they got the feel of it, the gist of it. Like, and I think it would have made it a 10 out of 10. Like, give you example. Look at Neil Druckmann and the series that like the Last of Us series, and how it's a different interpretation of that, but it's one that works 10 out of 10 for most people.
Yeah.
You have to have the creators there, dude.
No, I get you. I think from a foundation point of view, they are very important to have. There's another show I was thinking about, but it just kind of eludes me at this moment. But Young Sandwiches says, I think there is some merit to the idea of character that stays the same no matter what. Sometimes all a character needs to be is an angry man that hurts things. There's nothing wrong with that.
I agree.
This is true. I think there's no... everybody needs to be... Go ahead.
Or a man that for some reason always ends up in sewer tunnels and eating mushrooms.
I mean, yeah. You know, a guy with a sword who always has to save the princess or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think maybe the issue that we've had, at least of recent, is that like we're trying to tell different stories and new stories. That doesn't mean we need to get rid of old stories, right? There's space for every kind of story to exist, and we're going to change things up. And you know, like you saw in my video I made, I was like, yeah, listen, I'm not interested in your Vilgard's nonsense. Okay, keep that shit away from Mass Effect, please. That tonal shift, you know, all that corny stuff. Like, you know, my friends are playing it and they've all said the same thing, which is like, yeah, you know, the game is this, the game is that. However, I've seen enough of the dialogue. I've seen enough of everything around that surrounds the game to know that like I don't want this thing anywhere near Mass Effect. Not because it's a bad game, I don't give a shit about that. It's just no, I wasn't a fan of, like, there was a scene I saw where like one character was trying to fix something and she kind of threw something in the air, kicked it, and it started to work, and she's all like jolly happy, and then she hit somebody by accident. I was like, this is very Disney. Like, what the hell? What am I watching?
But like, Ty, did you finish Andromeda?
I did, Joe.
How is that not Andromeda copy and paste? Like, where everybody's just goofy and silly, and you know, like even like when you first meet that Asari girl, she tackles you to the ground. And like,
this was the scene I was actually going to bring up, because in Andromeda it was like this as well, and that's why I didn't like Andromeda that much. I was like, you crazy! First of all, you tricked me into coming into this. Wait, I told the commander, I ain't your friend.
Exactly.
What the hell is this? And then like she falls on me and she's all smiling like, oh, you know, sorry. And I'm like, sorry.
And she's not even
put on the airlock. What?
Dude, like, to me, Asari beauty is like, what's her name? Liara is like a 8 and 9. Like Liara's face, like if you look at the face model and you look at Liara, dude, like, and this was on Unreal 3 back in the day. She is a pretty beautiful girl. This girl looks like your little sister with the big cheeks and the big eyes, and she looks like someone you want to, like, you know, like, what's that thing that you do to someone's hair or pull it? Like, she doesn't look like someone that you fall in love with. Like, you're like, oh, she's adorable. You know, I didn't hate her character, but I just thought, like, for what she's supposed to be, she's not a romance. Like, in fact, it's the first Mass Effect game I played. Both playthroughs did not romance a single person. Was not interested.
Yeah. Do you know something else that I know about Vilgard, right? And this is a bit weird because someone told me they're like, oh, because I heard like Vilgard had more like there's a lot more romance options, a lot more characters, there's a lot more things to do. And someone was like, they wear underwear during the sexual encounters. And I was like, no, I don't. And I went to go check it up. I don't know if there's some kind of PG setting on it.
Is it?
Well, there was.
I didn't want to even see any of that shit.
Like, but it was underwear, and I was like, why?
Your eyes.
Wait, isn't this 18 plus? I don't understand what's going on.
It is mature. It's for mature audiences.
I
I
don't.
saw that one scene. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I saw that one. This is what they murdered that poor freaking Kunari character. That with what's her name, Tash, where she's supposed to try and romance the Rook character,
Hmm.
and the dialogue is just so, it makes no sense. She goes from saying, "Do you want to have sex?" and then she licks her on the neck, and it's awkward again, and then I'm like, what is going on here? Like, huh?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they do. Even remember the even in Andromeda as well when they were trying to Shepard was trying, not Shepard, Ryder was trying to flirt with the space girl. She was like, "Oh, I'm trying to flirt with you now. Oh my god, I'm sorry, it's so embarrassing." And I was just like,
who talks like that? Who is like, you know what it is, nah? And this is the problem with the Bad Robot writers, because they write a lot like that. And if you watched New Track with the girl from Walking Dead, I forgot what her name is. She's the captain now. She's like Spock's half brother, the black girl. What's her name? I forgot her name. But like, they talk like they're supposed to be like, what the Starfleet is like the most elite soldiers that have to do like serious work in space. This is
Mhm.
like having a bunch of marine people that go underwater, like that drive submarines, the most complex type of spaceships. So these are the most well put together, smart, intelligent, focused, trained, capable people. But with New Trek, they're emotional all the time. Oh my gosh! Like, they'll be in a firefight, and then somebody will be having an emotional breakdown. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this is the problem with these guys, with like your J.J. Abrams. They think everything can be an emotional moment. Whereas if you go back to old Trek, it's some of the most dry sort of like, engage. Then the alien says something, and then Picard says something. Okay, and then they plan for a while, and then someone comes up with a tactic. Oh, we just got fired on. It's so basic, but you can see professionals doing that. You
Mhm.
don't see professionals breaking down because the warp core is not working. Oh my god, the warp core is not working. What do we do, Captain? We use the power of friendship. And there's like some bullshit like that. Like, what are you guys doing? This is not Star Trek. Like, what are you doing?
I'll say this real quick. This is a side point. But I was I was talking to someone on Discord, and he was telling me how oh, like the left Western writing is so bad and all these things. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you could say it's like, oh, it's going a lot worse, blah blah blah. We need to be more like the Japanese. And I just burst out laughing because I was like, you didn't know. I was like, because when you said power of friendship, I was like, that is Japanese writing right there, like the very very on the
Nah,
nose and with these things. I told him, I was like, listen, I don't think you better know Japanese games to make that statement because if you
exactly.
did, you would know that you would hate it.
Dude,
Mhm.
no, I was saying, like, I completely agree with you. You can credit the Japanese for a lot of things. Actually, all Asian like countries that do like anime and video games, you can credit them for a lot of things. But making cohesive stories that are like, it's the same reason I sort of grew out of like Japan anime or like anime in general and all that. It's because I just got tired of these stories that just kind of like didn't make sense. Like, the last one I saw, I think, was like after Death Note. I watched something called Furikuri or Fulikuli, and like, dude, like, the show got so ridiculous that this one guy has portals in his head. So like, he will have something protruding from his head only to find it's an alien from another dimension that he has to fight at the end of the episode. Like, it's stuff that sort of like is so beyond the comprehension of disbelief that you start to feel like, huh? What?
Yeah.
So no, those people do not write stories that make sense. Like, I'm sorry, like, that's a bad, like, I agree with you there that like,
Yeah.
that person has not watched anime to understand just how ridiculous anime is.
Yeah. They do well when it comes to charm and all these things, but like I remember like my friend Frank, he was he does YouTube and he makes videos on story writing. Like we're very similar in terms of like how we think about stories, and he was saying how like he just couldn't get into metaphor. He was like, I'm talking to Hulkenberg. It's one of those story parts, and we were just talking. Out of nowhere, her friend from the past shows up, and he's like an asshole. He's racist. And he's just like,
Yeah,
this is so random. Like, are you serious? Like, this is how it's gonna happen. This is how the story is being forced on me.
exactly.
Like this person just randomly shows up, and he said CD Projekt Red or any Western developer would never be forgiven if they wrote shit like this. This like
Exactly.
MacGuffins. But this is like this Asian guy can just get away with it, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so charming and sweet." It's like, no, this is stupid writing, But now he said himself like, "Yo," he said something I said about these Japanese or Asian stories are like they have good twists. He was like, "Yeah, the writing the writing is the writing, but if you take it for what it is." You see the charm, you see all the good bits, and it's like they have really good twists. There's a lot of turns I don't expect, and they just do it. And I think I agree 100%. The twists are great. Xenoblade has crazy twists in it, and pretty much every Japanese game I've played, I've always been like, "Damn, that's like really surprising. I didn't expect that at all."
Dude, like in my youth, I was like my storytelling brain was formed or shaped by like games like Final Fantasy, from Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, from games like there's another series that I really fell in love with, like it's one of my favorite RPG series, Grandia. Like so many things, like, but I've tried to go back and say, how do I feel about that? Let me go and watch that play out on YouTube, for instance. And a lot of it is just you cringing through it and like, oh geez, I thought this was. However, there's a charm to it, to your point, that as a younger person, I really appreciate it, and it still sort of hits those nostalgia points, but the level of writing is not comparable to anything like a Mass Effect 1 or any of the Western games that have really pushed narrative. But the thing is with the Japanese or the East is that their stories are very abstract. The themes are always, that's why they make good horror games or good fantasy games. But anything grounded in reality with like maybe cops, look at like how successful Yakuza is, and it makes no sense. It's not about crime. Crime is like the setup, but the game itself is about karaoke and all sorts of weird ass things, dude, like that make no sense in the real world.
Yeah, very extreme take, like my friend as well, he said he was playing for like, I think he played like 5 hours or 10 hours of it, and he's like, I just couldn't anymore. I was like, everything's a joke to these people. Like
Exactly.
It's like, what the, like, you don't go from like cyberpunk to like Yakuza. It's like, it just doesn't work. It's such a distraction. But
and
and this metaphor, he's liked it a bit. Go on.
And you know what else is guilty of that?
Which one?
Kojima.
Yeah.
None of freaking Kojima's games make any like, aside from all these political commentary and all that sort of stuff, how guns work and how the military works, the setup between characters, like in the middle of a serious thing like Metal Gear Solid, like they can't help themselves. Metal Gear Solid 4, like when in the middle of a serious battlefield and Snake is going through the most, and a guy needs to take a shit. You remember that scene?
I don't remember the scene, but I'm not surprised.
And then like, his stomach is running the whole time, and then he has to go and take a shit, and then they do the whole thing from like the comic movies, and I'm like, bro, way to take me out of the moment. Like we're dealing with, you're telling me about like war has changed, and everything is about proxy wars, and guns only work based on nanomachines, and then this motherfucker needs to freaking take a shit. And like, kind of just like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, it is, yeah. I'm looking forward to his new game though.
It's an Xbox.
Yeah, that was a real surprise, to be honest.
Yeah, I downloaded it.
I think I would wager that whatever deal he signed with PlayStation for their new game, he's probably like, I mean, he would love to rethink it, because I like Kojima is too big to be on one console.
Definitely
makes sense. And I think he might be thinking that too as well. Like, shit, why did I sign this deal with PlayStation? Sega has repeatedly came out and said the reason why we're so successful is because our games are everywhere. Like, screw all this time exclusive stuff. We put our games everywhere, and it does well. Sonic was everywhere. One of the fastest selling ones. And I don't see any reason why a Kojima game, because someone mentioned about finance, like, oh well, he pitched on, gives him good money. I was like, no, like Kojima can get money. If you can get 150 million for Callisto Protocol and for Immortals of Avium, I'm pretty sure Kojima can get 150 million for whatever he says, because he has brand name. Death Stranding, like, it's a walking simulator, and it's sold 10 million plus, right? Because it had Kojima's brand name on it, and because regardless if the game is a walking simulator or not, it was a quality game. So yeah, he shouldn't be exclusive.
No, I agree with you. It's a quality game, and like the things with Kojima is like a lot of his games are 60% movie, and about sometimes it's like 65% movie, and 35% gameplay. Because again, the one thing, because I'm playing Dead Stranding now on PS4, and I'll tell you this, dude, like there's so little, like from getting from point A to B, most of it after that is just dialogue after dialogue and set up, and like he's grand, like the same stuff that he always shows off in the trailers, where
Mhm.
it's this surreal thing with aliens coming out of the sky and everything is black, and then you understand that's what most of the game is, and it's beautiful to look at. It's interesting philosophically to sort of try and interpret, but in terms of, like, it's not a moment to moment game where you're building to something that is sort of cohesive, like in a Mass Effect game, or in
Yeah.
a what's another good example of a Western game, in a Last of Us. The story is not like building to any. It's just these abstract things, like all these ideas that he has, and they sort of like are tied together by the characters, but the characters are not necessarily very well written.
Yeah, no, I agree. Me and Young Sanchez were talking about Mass Effect Andromeda, and he says Andromeda just feels like a mishmash of ideas that had no endpoint, which I think is a perfect way to describe that game. Good ideas, really poor execution. I'll give them. I always give credit to them just because they created that game in the space of 2 years, and everything that they did before that was completely binned. They had No Man's Sky like flying. They had all those multiple different planets you could land on. And they kind of scrapped all that just to focus on what we got. So it always makes you think that, like, if they had somebody competent at the very start, this wouldn't have happened, because clearly leadership wasn't really doing anything. So
Yeah, like, so Young Sandwiches, I think if they'd made Mass Effect Andromeda 2, okay, like, so with that, my only problem is, like, I've seen Veilguard, so that would have probably come out around the same time as Veilguard.
mhm.
I don't know, dude. Like, I just feel that, like, the talent in terms of writing is just not there. Like, that was not, because they talked about, like, well, we could fix certain things in the mechanics in the sequel. I remember there was a lot of leaks from Jason Schreier, that spoke about, like, they already were preparing to say, well, we'll fix this in the sequel, basically, if it doesn't work. My problem is, like, you can't fix bad writing in a sequel. Like, you can fix, like, what I mean by that is, unless you change the writers and you bring new people to write your story, you're gonna have the same problem.
Oh, I think they were gonna do something. Like, the writing wasn't great, but I think even my issue was just execution. I don't even mean from a writing point of view. I just mean, like, finish the damn story. I'm seeing all these characters with some interesting concepts, but it just felt like so unfinished. Like, nobody, like, they didn't have time to finish it, and it seemed like Mass Effect Andromeda was gearing up for Mass Effect Andromeda 2, where it's like, okay, we'll tell you everything, Mass Effect Andromeda 2, and it's like, bro, like, just finish this damn story. What I will say is that, sorry,
what was the ending? I can't remember. I just remember there was like
it was they got to the
run.
helix or something, the thing that terraforms planets, and they give you like a Halo scene where you are driving the car and it crashed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I remember.
Yeah, honestly, it was very unmemorable. Like, I didn't even matter, Joe. And the Archon could have been interesting.
What was the story ending? What happened in the story at the end?
I don't even know. The Archon's people. Shit, Archon's people. What the name? The Ket went back to the home location, and they were able to use the machine to terraform. I can't even remember, to be honest with you. It was so...
at all. And I finished it twice. I finished that game twice.
Yeah, it just was so stupid. It was just irrelevant. I think
but I won't lie,
that was the smaller stories.
Like, you know what was awesome about it, and I think the only reason I would play Veilguard, but I hate everything about Veilguard so much, is the gameplay. The gameplay, I think, in Mass Effect was it's the reason that kept me going. The driving of the what's it called? The vehicle that you land on the planets, that I enjoyed. It was very relaxing sometimes just to drive. on those planets and just randomly discover things. And the gameplay, like when the combat kicks in, and then you can do that. That was so crunchy. It was, in my opinion, the only thing that they got wrong is I don't think they should have done away completely with the cover system, because now you no longer have that cover system. You have that one where, like, if you're next to a wall, he'll sort of cover. You can't like get into cover. That's because you have that jumping jet thing, which works very well. Everything to do with the gameplay was super, super, super tight in that game. Graphics were also, in terms of the planets and all the other, everything looked good in that respect. It's the character sprites that were all dodgy looking. I don't know why they chose that art style, similar to Veilguard. And then, of course, the writing was just pathetic.
Yeah, no, I think we're all in agreement there. For Mass Effect 4, I've always said that I have more hope in the writing just because of Mary DeMarle. I think from a
You mean
writing,
5? Yeah?
I call it 4. Some people call it 5. I don't know why I call it 5. Like I
Because
feel like
Andromeda exists.
Andromeda is like what we would call Fallout New Vegas,
Yeah.
or
You wanna-
Halo
Yeah.
ODST. Like it's in the same universe, or the same game universe.
Yeah.
It's a different franchise. It's a different thing altogether. And I think that made sense because I don't think even the original creators of Mass Effect Andromeda were trying to like be like, oh, this is like Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3. The fact that I go back to the Milky Way makes me more like this is Mass Effect 4. Mass Effect 5 just seems like, and it's going to be up to BioWare to call it whatever they want to call it. I don't even think calling the Mass Effect 4 or 5 would make sense. I think they would just have to call it a new game to kind of get fans on board, like everybody,
Yeah,
like audience on board. But for me, it's just clearly Mass Effect 4 because Mass Effect Andromeda is so different.
So you know what I would have done if I was BioWare with Veilguard and Andromeda? I would have called them like almost like a sub mini series. So I will call them things like Andromeda, a Mass Effect story, or Veilguard, or the Veilguard, a Dragon Age story. So like even when people interpret them, then people will not be as harsh. Like, oh, these are side stories. The main thing is still coming in another 20 years. But like when you have front and center Dragon Age, front and center Mass Effect, and then you produce that cosplay stuff. Yeah,
It's different. Yeah. No, I agree. So Andromeda is. I don't know how they're gonna mix and match Andromeda aliens with Milky Way aliens. That's a very, very complex topic, and that's why I'm very focused on them just sticking to one part of this. But anyways, Mary DeMarle, she's Deus Ex, Guardians of the Galaxy, 2 or 3 well-written games.
Which Deus Ex did she work on?
I think she worked on Humankind. And let me actually double check. Mary DeMarle.
There's a lot of Deus Ex actually. Like there's the console ones, and then there's the ones pre-console that were on PC.
Okay, so she worked on she worked on Deus Ex Human Revolution. She was a narrative designer and lead writer. For Deus Ex Mankind Divided, she was the executive narrative director. And for
those games are very well written overall.
Yo, like not even just well written. I don't know if you've ever watched any of those like retrospective videos on YouTube, but the way they're written from a gameplay perspective is like insane. There's so many. There's options to tackle certain objectives in the game. That could be sneaking into someone's house. That could be talking to the neighbor, and this is all written into the game. There's a conversation you could have with like some random person who will tell you something completely random, and then you go check that thing out, and it would lead to you sticking to that person's air vent and then actually finding the information. And it was just the options of how to tackle that particular mission is clearly written into the game, and that's her. She's the one like saying like, yeah, okay, let's do it this way, and let's give all these varied options. And that's why I'm very like focused on the fact that like, hey, Mass Effect is a game that has multiple different characters that deals with social problems, and Deus Ex dealt with that as well. And it allows you to tackle those social problems from a narrative point of view, not just from a gameplay point of view. Like, oh, let's sneak in, let's shoot this person, let's rob this person. The game is actually saying, no, we're giving you narrative ways to actually tackle this. So I'm looking at her saying, yeah, this is the kind of person you want writing your game, and she's in she's an old guard. Like she's like, she's been writing since 2001, 2003. She's not like, people say, oh, it's all these new people coming in, don't know anything. Like she is like an established person. She is like the equivalent of maybe a a Drew Barry. Sorry, Drew Kasparian. Now, maybe not as old, obviously, but like, she's been working on video games for a very long time. And BioWare got her now. Like when she left Square Enix, that was a huge loss for them, the Western studio, and that was a huge gain for Mass Effect. I can't think of anybody else that comes to mind who I think this would fit in so much right now. You could talk about getting the old guys back. Yeah, true. I mean, that would work, right? Or you could talk about getting guys, who kind of helped out with Baldur's Gate 3. There's good people everywhere, but like she's just very like a standout individual. And because she's a senior narrative director, she's the one who's hiring these people, all the writers. Like this is her team, and she's the one who's going to oversee all this stuff. And another bonus is, she won narrative at the Game Awards for 2018, 2019. She was one who won the narrative design. She was like, best writing. She won that award. So this is why I'm like, no, I have faith. Unless she goes completely left field and just like, like just drops quality, it just wouldn't make sense. There's a reason why BioWare wanted her. And again, this is not like, because I think when Drew went back to BioWare, I think he also made a comment saying, like, I wasn't like the lead. I came to help out with certain things, but I wasn't the one making those decisions. So he's trying to distance himself from like Anthem and Andromeda, like, yo, take it easy, bro. Like, I'm still a legend. Like, I saw that shit. I was like, what the fuck is this? But she's not like, in that situation. She is the lead.
Yeah. So it's interesting because while you're talking, I actually just thought like what you're saying is actually quite interesting in terms of like the credibility of the writer. And I just want to check who's the Veilguard writer. It's a guy called Trick Weeks. This guy's been around from Mass Effect 1, dude. He was a writer, one of the writers in Mass Effect 1. It doesn't really credit him like what he wrote. Dragon Age Origins, additional design. Mass Effect 2, he was a writer for that as well. So he was probably a secondary writer. And then, of course, he wrote, like, for instance, for the layer of the Shadow Broker. Fucking brilliant. Senior writer in Mass Effect 3, right? Mass Effect 3 from Ashes, he was also a writer there. He wrote the Leviathan DLC, the Citadel DLC. See, I can see him writing the Citadel DLC. That makes sense to me. But a lot of the stuff, like, really, like, proper things here, dude, like, how? I don't understand. Like, I really don't get it. Like, and he's also written like novels, like the Prophecy Con, the Paladin Cape. I don't know any of these, and then he's done some novels for Dragon Age as well, like Tevinter Nights and all the stuff that a lot of the Dragon Age fans talk about. But of course, the main thing here that sort of gives it away is that as if you go to his Wikipedia, like right away just before it gets into his games, talks about his personal life, and it says Trick Weeks lives in Edmonton, Canada, with their wife Karen Weeks and their 2 sons. Trick Weeks uses they/them pronouns and identifies as pansexual and non-binary. Okay, that's
so you're thinking, now I understand everything. But
the thing is, like, aside from that, like he's with a biography like this. How do you write Veilguard?
Do you know what I said about Veilguard, right? And I think Yon Sandwich is kind of saying like that's weird. He thinks it's weird too. Like, yo, bro, this game, you got so much experience. Like, what the hell's going on? I think what I'll say here is, there's a difference between a writer, lead writer, and I guess maybe the narrator, the director of writing, right? So I was going to I know I've seen Jane Park comment on this, but I've also seen my friend Franklin's comment on this, and he states very clear that Dragon Age Veilguard is such a weird game, and he says there's a point where you can tell the writing has changed. So he was
Yeah.
even like, I think he might make a video on this, but he's like, you're doing a story and you can tell somebody wrote this story. And when you do a different story, it's like, no, somebody else wrote this. There's such a difference in quality that it doesn't even make sense. So I think, him being the lead writer, he was the boss. And I think maybe where he slipped up was he just let certain people write whatever they want. And he just thought it was cool or whatever it is, right? And when it comes to Tash, which is also poor writing from many people, maybe he doesn't want to get involved in telling, whoever who's writing that, like, yeah, this is how it should be done, etc., etc., etc. So I can kind of see that, and that's probably part of this whole toxic positivity issue that we have. So that probably plays a role there. Now, what I will say is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's just not to finish. Like, there's just one thing I want to add there.
Well, I was gonna say, our Mary DeMarle isn't, I think she doesn't have any of these history. She's just, her profile just, hey, they're Mary DeMarle, Bachelor of Science from University in Television, Radio, and Film Production. So I think, for her, it's just, keeping to what it is. And a young Sandwich also mentioned that, like, Guardians of the Galaxy was, a dope and well-written game.
Yeah.
So
the one thing I was gonna add in terms of him is, like, again, like, Ty, if you gave me a story and you said, okay, cool, you know what, we want to lean into like some African cultures or African issues or Black issues, I would take that so seriously, because first of all, I would think of it like, first, I don't want it to be received incorrectly by the people that are going to be buying the game, because it's so precious to me. It has to be told correctly, and what I mean correctly, it has to be appealing to the mainstream. Similar way like Ryan Coogler was able to bring through Black Panther and get that sort of, like, acclaim and recognition. I would take it that seriously. I would not want it to be anything. I would not write it for a Black audience, because when I write it for a Black audience, or people that who will understand the background of South African audience, even, is I know that I'm alienating 99% of the people that are going to be experiencing this. I would write it in a way that I'm trying to tell the story about my experience as a Black South African to a population of people that are not familiar with me. So you have to do it in a way that it's nuanced and it sort of brings them into my experience in a way that they feel included by that experience and they feel like it's a learning experience. It's not a lecture, but it's a journey that's going on with me. It would be I don't know how many drafts of that I would write, but I would make sure like I tested every way possible that it lands with the audience, because it's that important. It cannot come off like a first draft that was written by a person that writes fan fiction on Tumblr. Like, and for me, like, the lack of nuance really killed those people. Like, in terms of, like, I would have loved to see a nuanced story about a they/them character or a person that identifies as that, but within the context of the world, not Twitter. So, in other words, don't tell me about, like, my pronouns are this, or I want to see it like how they did it previously, built into the Kunari lore. You understand? Because in Star Trek, they've told stories about, like, characters that were transgender or that were multiple, that didn't have a gender, that were asexual and whatever. But they do it so well within the lore that it feels natural. It feels like you're learning about somebody's culture. It's like the first time I went to Nigeria and I learned about the different foods, and how different that culture is. And there's so much appreciation, so much sort of like, wow, so we have it like this and you guys have it like this here. Oh, that's pretty awesome. That is a sharing experience. It's not me hitting you over the head about my culture and that you should respect it and it's important to you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, listen, the face of it is, no matter what they did, I think the tourists are going to come along and say, oh, this is that. However, when you annoy the tourists and you annoy your actual fan base, and that's always a bad sign. And you can never please everybody, but try to please as most people as you can, at least the majority, and especially your core, because then it's gonna be good. Like, for example, when Grumps tried to go at Monster Hunter, they were like, "Get the fuck away from here! Like, don't you dare bring your freaking cultural bullshit. Like, we're happy with what we're seeing here. Like, these guys are talking about us. They're making a game for us, and we, the fans of Monster Hunter, extremely pleased with what we're seeing here. So don't come with that nonsense. And then you don't even need to say anything because your fan base is gonna fight for you. They're gonna tell them to get away from here. So, and even maybe something similar with the Ghost of Tsushima one a little bit as well, because I know, like, a lot of them were pushing back on Reddit, with tourists coming over, being like, oh, they're turning into this and that. And they were like, listen, get out of here, okay? Like, you guys haven't played the game. There's strong men in the game, blah, blah, blah. And we're here concerned about the gameplay and the story, not concerned about the gender. So I think, yeah, you're right there. If you focus on your core and you kind of, write a good story, write it well, the tourists will come, they'll complain, they'll cry, but they're going to be very insignificant. However, when you mess up, they'll amplify that mess up and they'll kind of twist it, and they'll tell people like, hey, listen, they're not making the game for you, they're kind of fucking things up, they're doing this, they're doing that, and I can see it's going to cause more problems. So yeah, I think I 100% agree with you on that.
And my thing is, Ty, these games need to make money. These games cost a lot of money to make. So you don't want to alienate anyone. Ideally, you want your game to be received like Space Marine 2. And sorry, just to go back to Grumps. Like, a lot of people don't know this. Like, my first encounter with Grumps was I first saw him on Jeffy's show, and he's a really polarizing. He's not a very smart guy in the sense, like, he's not socially intelligent. I can tell that he's a guy that's very proficient in like certain aspects of the gaming industry, but he's not very socially intelligent in the way that he sort of tries. That's the same reason he made that big F up with the whole Matty Plays thing. He's not that smart in that sense. So the reason he ended up grifting towards like the culture wars is because his first grift was to be anti-Starfield. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
He was the most vocal anti-Starfield person even before the game launched, because he had some gripe with Microsoft and Xbox and Bethesda. And what ended that was when that game launched and he started going in on it even more, the experts fetched him. Every single space he was off the internet, I think, for like a week or a couple of weeks. And then he came back. He had to block people. They fetched him. Like, he got like the virtual ass beaten of a lifetime. And then after that, he stopped talking about Starfield, and then he found a new grift, which was this. But that's how that guy like got his start, was through Starfield. Because I remember he still said things like, when he saw the opening screen of Starfield, he made some comments about this screen tells you that this game was rushed and was done by people that didn't have passion for it. And I think that was the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel. They all fetched. Every single expert attacked him, and he complained like for days. No, Microsoft has sent all these bots to come after him. Like, no, Microsoft didn't send. You think Phil Spencer is thinking about you? He's like, exactly. They've sent their bots after me, and
yeah, no, you're right. And I actually like that moment. But the funny thing is, I kind of agreed with Grumps a little bit, to be honest. Is, and my friend was like, "But bro, look at the Elden Ring." I was like, "No. I'm kind of looking at him saying it's not a tell factor, but I was like, this could have been done better, and it kind of set this tone for me of like, this game has focused on certain things, but I feel like definitely neglected certain things. I just kind of had that vibe, and I remember there was a scene I was playing, and obviously when you start saying like, yo, where's the map? How do I get to the certain locations? I'm like, nah, Grumps was right. Like, what the fuck is this? And I remember there was a scene, right? I landed on Aquila, and something happened. And the game wanted to tell me like, oh, like, this person or whatever is doing something. A square box pops up that looks like it was, created like in the freaking like early 2000s or something, and it just states, oh, it just writes to me like, what's happening or whatever. And I was like, this is it? Like, it's not even in some flashy manner. It's just so plain. And I was like, nah, Grumps is right. Like, yeah, I get where he's coming from now. Whoever who made that screen or whatever it is, it was just very simple and plain. And I was like, yeah, the Starfield has some simple and plain elements that I don't think they really focused on. Because if you look at that map, like what they did to it now, it's so like high res, it's so nice, it's so flat, it's so like well detailed. It looks like someone actually put effort into it. Whereas before they were clearly not putting effort into it. They were putting effort into other things, like obviously maybe trying to get the loading screens faster. They were trying to get like the details done. Because Starfield, detail wise, it's amazing. Like I play on the PC and I'm just shocked how you step into a room and it just has so much mess and junk, and it just feels so real. I've never played a game that's felt that real. And I haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2, and people say that does feel real, but I've never played a game that just does the environment so well. It's such a joy to just walk around like your ship and just to see how like this is actually what it could be like in 150 years from now, or whatever it is. So I think Bethesda clearly focused on certain aspects of the game and left little things like that, away. Which, listen, it makes sense. Why would you make the pop-up box sexy when you're trying to like get rid of bugs, right? It just doesn't make sense. So, but I get it overall. Young Sandwich says, all right, chaps, I could go on all night about these things, but it's barely time. Bye-bye sleep time for me. Really enjoy the chats, and we'll catch you next time. Shout out from Cape Town. He's from Cape Town.
Cool. Oh, this dude is Cape Town. All right, Young Sandwich. Good to know that you're local, and it's been a pleasure kicking it with you, my man.
Yeah, listen, thanks for the comments, and like I said, you guys managed to change my mind on some of these Mass Effect talking points, so appreciate that. Young Savage, if you're still there, we'll be going live. Talking about probably video games this weekend. Me, Oshers, and maybe some of the other guys will join up. If you want to watch, I'm not too sure what time that'll be. Probably Sunday, Saturday. I'll drop a post up early on just so people can know as well. But to anyone else watching this, thank you for coming through. Oshers, do you want to close out?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna plug anything because I'm still working. Like my channel is so much under, there's so much stuff that's pending. So for now, so if you do wanna just watch some of my back videos, go check me out on YouTube, Oz the Wiz, and also I'm very much active on Twitter, also Oz the Wiz, and I'll also whenever Tai ropes me in or Loke ropes me in. I'm on Tai Talks as well as They Said, We Said Gaming.
Okay. To anyone else, sorry, hold on. Okay, cool. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys probably sometime this weekend. Ciao now.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me, Tai.